everyone, and welcome to another episode of By the Numbers, return of By the Numbers, specifically the second season of By the Numbers that we preface with the word return. So you know it's the second season of By the Numbers and not sponsored by the people that used to sponsor the old By the Numbers. It's distinct, it's its own entity, it's a second season. Maybe we'll cancel this season at some point, and then in our 50s we'll decide to bring it back, and then who knows what it'll be. Bride of By the Numbers, probably. But for now,
Problem is, Richard, the obvious thing we fucked up there is you're supposed to wait until you do the comeback to ask for the money. We've already asked the fans for the money before we even did the cynical comeback. Like, our problem is there's no third act. They've already given us the money. So
no, but what we do is, right, is what I've always thought. We do it like, you know, By the Numbers on the road. And we like turn up to like small shit bars in like Chiswick. And it's like 20 people who know who we are in the front row. Like, yeah. We just tell the same anecdotes we've told 100 times, and they all just sit there and wait for you to say, "Here's the thing," you know, and they get all excited.
Round of applause immediately after.
Yeah,
everyone gets all emotional during that part because it's 10 years from now when we all do the 1 pint salute to Sam, who's been dead about 5 years. At that
If he did say he wanted to be like John Belushi, he did die after that 8 ball. Robert De Niro wasn't the party. It was exactly that. Anyway, look, this is return of By the Numbers. Not a lot of news happening. Obviously, it's been the player break, so it's going to be a classic filler episode. Probably short but sweet. That's what we all want. But just before we get into it, let's have a shout out to the sponsor, not plural at the moment, but watch this space. Of course, NordVPN. Proud to have them on board. They've got a great deal going at the moment where you get like 73, 74% off, I think it works out as. Your first 4 months free if you sign up with my referral code. So go to nordvpn.com/RLS to take advantage of that. We are a premium partner over in this neck of the woods. They've never sponsored podcasts or people who talk before. They decided to give it a pump with me, of all people. It's worked out brilliantly for them, thanks to the support of the community. So support them because they support us. Right. Where should we start? I mean, there's loads of crazy stuff that's gone on. But let's just start with the story I broke today. I descended down from, you know, the mountain once more. Esports Jesus. There I was, busy with other things, looking into all this Overwatch stuff. In fact, that reminds me, I better turn my phone off because it's been ringing off the hook. But yeah, and so I thought, you know what? Been a while since I've done a roster move. But as I was doing the rounds, working on other stories, this story sort of just fell into my lap. And that was that apparently Movistar Riders, or Movistar, I'm supposed to say, they are going to move to an all-Spanish roster. And that means there's no room at the inn for Smooya, who has been their star player in the 6 months he's been on the team. I checked and double-checked it. I thought, this is madness. But it's legit for whatever reason. I don't think it even relates to any of the classic stuff that's, you know, plagued Smooya's career. This perception about him being difficult to play with. It looks like, you know, they really just want
the Spanish thing.
Yeah, I think because, you know, if you think about it, last month they benched Shocks, the Estonian Shocks. Obviously, Steel is still on the books, the Brazilian IGL. And I think, you know, for whatever reason, whether it is they got tired of having to do everything in English, or maybe even just for marketing, because, you know, it's a very Spanish, you know, focused brand.
It's a huge scene there as well, I know. So
yeah.
Like, it's one of those rare ones, like people know with the Brazilian one, where it wouldn't surprise me if people flexed hard into it. Like people seem to be super enthusiastic in that specific region for players from that region, yeah.
Yeah, so he's going to be on the bench. He's still technically under contract, but from what I understand, they, you know, because obviously he's a high-profile player, they don't want to lock him down or hold on to him, so they're just listening to all offers for him. And so I asked the question, where next for the mighty Rat King, Duncan? Because seriously, he did a tweet, which is usually a bad thing. It's a bad thing for anyone, isn't it? But he did a tweet recently where he was talking about, you know, it's crazy how, like, his mindset has changed over the, you know, last few years, and that he feels like a very different person, you know, and he was asking, like, whether everyone else has kind of noticed, like, as you get older, that sort of natural maturity that comes with time. And remember, he's still only 21. He's well within his rights to be a daft cunt. I mean, 21, you know, you're pretty much allowed to be a daft cunt until 25. And then, if you're still a daft cunt at 30, then you're probably a perma daft cunt. Like, you've just got long-term problems. And actually, being a daft cunt eventually just sort of, the daftness sort of just falls away and you're just left with being a cunt. So, something to think about. But anyway, he's only 21 and, still got some great Counterstrike years left in him. And so it seems to me that this is the time where if somebody wants to come in and get a tier 1 AWPer, which he unquestionably is, I mean, he's proven that with his statistics while playing in Movistar Riders. There's no doubt, if you go and look at his performances, where they finished mid-table in the SEA Premier, and he's just he's like one of the top performing players in the league, not just on their team. So that tells its own story. He's clearly a tier 1 player. He needs a tier 1 home. And I think you're probably getting a much more mature version of Smooya. Obviously, there'll still be room for improvement. We're going to get into something in a second as a topic. But I think there are some places where I think naturally he would fit. And I would urge these orgs to take a look at him. But what do you think? Where would you put the Rat King now if you were dropping him into a team?
Right, I have to say, even though, as you say, like in theory, this is supposed to be what it appears on face value, the surface level, that it's a Spanish team with Spanish backing that wants to have an all Spanish. Like, okay, that's fine. That's not implausible. It is weird because, as you just said, that's essentially like if the only player from fucking who wasn't from CIS in Na'Vi was Simple, and then Na'Vi was like, actually, I think we'd rather be from the CIS region. They're like, so you'd rather just not have a team then, because that guy is your team. So I agree. Like, that's the weirdest part about it is I can't really see how, unless it's just for market reasons, it actually helps Movistar. Like, if anything, don't they become irrelevant again and nobody give a fuck about them? On the other hand, that's why, to me, I have to leave the door potentially open still, that there was some sort of personality-based issue. It doesn't even have to be literally arguing. It could just be something like you don't want to play the game the way that they want to play the game. Nope. That's an obvious classic one that can come up. So that's a concern, because I would say if I was another team thinking of picking him up, this is a player you 100% do your due diligence with. You go and you do all the references you can get, all the former teammates you can find. You try and get as much info as you can before you make the move. With that said, though, what you see in the server, like you're saying, the eye test, it's fantastic, yeah. I think the main problem for Smooya, as far as I can tell, is the teams that he obviously should probably get a chance on, the baggage means he almost certainly won't. I'll give you an obvious example. When you look at a team like G2, what's the one thing they're missing? Tier 1 AWPer, right?
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, I can't really imagine a world in which you've already just gotten through the sort of handle Nico with kid gloves phase, then you're just going to recruit Smooya. Like, that just sounds like you want to piss away both investments, So unfortunately, certain moves I don't see happening. I even think, actually, when he says he's only 21, it's one of those ones where I'm kind of torn on either side. On the one hand, I almost feel like for someone like Smooya, he was always going to be a fuck up on some level. So on one hand, it might have been better to actually get out of your system as soon as possible, because as you say, if anything, he might have only just entered his prime now. He might have all the rest of his career to be awesome. On the other hand, though, I also feel like he definitely sort of fucked himself by when he was very, very young. The people didn't take that into account. Like, the way he did things was just like, oh, just show I am. And so people just think, right, you're just an arsehole then. So I think his trouble is, it feels like he's still got a mountain to climb to get back to the status where people actually will truly consider him for their teams. Because I agree, if you took the nameplate off, it would already be a tier. Basically, of all the players you could recruit as an AWPer, he'd be top 5 right now.
Yeah, I mean, so for me, in terms of the teams, we've already talked a little bit about Fnatic, and I'll just qualify that statement, why I think he's a good fit. I mean, I've already said I'm not mad sold on Joaquinio, which isn't to be dismissive of his talents or his opportunity for development, but, he kind of got into the AWPing position on Fnatic essentially by the diminishing returns on JW on that team. It wasn't that anyone said, this kid's lighting everyone up with the AWP, let's bring him in. It was simply that, well, JW doesn't do it anymore. Joaquinio says he can. He's young. He's the future of Fnatic. JW is very much the past. So we'll give Joaquinio the AWP and we'll see how that pans out. And that, to me, isn't an optimal strategy. I think as well, based on rumors that were circulating around Cloud9, I know a lot of people were memeing and saying Smooya to Cloud9 because Cloud9's a UK team now with Mezzi and Alex, but I do think he was a viable. I do think he was a potential candidate to join based on what I was hearing at the time. I don't think that was a meme. So Alex being the IGL of Fnatic, maybe he would advocate for him again and want to bring him in. Maybe it's a situation where they don't want to make too many more changes on the roster, so they wait and see. But I would imagine Smooya would be on the Fnatic shortlist. They've got one eye on him because I think he's a good fit now more than ever, especially as, you know, they've got an IGL that's advocated for him in the past. Then you've got another one that I think could be potential. That's fairly obvious. I think Complexity. I know they've just signed Esatag, but Poison's had some, you know, health issues. Sid's come back from those health issues. He has been inconsistent. I don't know if the health issues directly impact on the performance or whether it is just inconsistency in general in his game. But he doesn't seem the same player he was before he went away. So I think Complexity's a potential spot for him. I would also say, you know, and this one might be a bit more of a wild card, but I think it's marketing genius. Evil geniuses, you know, like who better to bring in than someone who's like Idra, essentially, was in StarCraft, in the sense that, you know, a no-filter player with a high skill ceiling.
You even literally use that angle, don't you? You take like all the old footage of Idra and you basically impose it over him and show like, you know, we're going back to our roots or something, you know, putting the evil in evil genius, you know, that shit, yeah.
Exactly. So it's a marketing dream. And the reality there is they are a European team now. It's not, you know, we'll talk a little bit about their roster changes on the show.
So, of course, Evil Geniuses did just recently partner with Wolves, so we know that they just need you to come from the UK and not actually be good or famous.
Yeah, exactly.
That's one of those ones, Richard, where, you know what, that's one of those headlines that, on the other hand, could just come out of the Onion about 20 years ago. Mate. But when I saw it, right, and I woke up, I just thought, this is, if you're actually from the UK, this is the most perfect headline for how stupid Americans in esports are. That they think, like, no joke, they think they partnered with, like, Chelsea or something.
Yeah,
You've partnered with motherfucking Wolverhampton Wanderers.
I've heard Steve Bull's going to come out of retirement.
I can't handle it. This is like if tomorrow it's like, oh, you won't believe this, TSM, we're partnered with fucking Hull, baby. You know, some shit like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I know. It is hilarious. The thing is, though, like to Wolves' credit, it's only one of those headlines that is ridiculous because it's a history thing. But, you know, yeah, maybe in like 10 years, you know, if they stay in the Prem, it won't be as
And also,
ridiculous.
supposedly, what I heard, which makes more sense, is the real reason they've done that deal isn't the football. It's that, like, apparently they're owned by, like, aren't they all owned by the fucking Chinese or something, like some, like, mega rich people again?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
In 10 years, they probably will be equivalent to them.
Yeah, but anyway, yeah, you know, I think Cirque's not been playing well over in Evil Geniuses. I don't think that's a surprise to anybody. And, you know, Smooya, I think on current form, plus the marketing angle, I think it's a good move. I mean, you know, I know we're kind of saying goodbye to the, you know, the NRG team of old, but as we'll get to in a little bit, that's gone anyway, and it isn't coming back. And EG at the moment is a bit of a bust, and they have to make some pretty radical changes. So I think there's like a number of potential teams you could put Smooya in. I'm trying to think of other ones. You know, there's probably not many others, really. Everyone else seems to be situated pretty well for their ops right now. All the viable moves, at least. So I saw somebody on Reddit was talking about Furia as a potential thing, but it's like, I don't know if they want to.
It's genius because they can't understand what he's saying. So,
exactly.
It's perfect team.
It's perfect team. Yeah, exactly.
He shoots people, and then they don't know what he's saying. So I reckon actually it might work out. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, obviously, one of the issues they had when they tried to bed Junior in was that they all went to English, and you know they felt they lost a step with that. And you know,
can we just say this because we never actually addressed this at the time? Even though I agree, and from what I've heard, it does seem to me like you have to basically have like extra good players, basically like the best FaZe Clan lineups, to make the international lineup work as well as, you know, the all native lineup where everyone's super comfortable. I do think though the other thing that people don't always think about when they're in like the situation Junior was or Smooya in Big is you are also the easiest scapegoat of all time because they don't even have to actually say they want to kick you. They just go, it's just not working out, not being in the other language. It's like you knew what it was going into it. So I do think a lot of these teams also, that is like the first excuse queued up in the fucking in the barrel, as it were, you know. So like you never on some of those moves, you don't even know if it's always true. Like I think they just go to that if they lose. If they'd have won with the guy and had the same exact comms, I think magically they'd have said the project worked, you know.
Yeah. Now look, let's get to something that I want to say. Obviously, we've had a long relationship, haven't we, with Smooya down the years on this podcast, right? And I've said that me and him have talked it out in the past, and I can recognize where I've been a little bit immature, and it's easy to forget. It's easy to forget people's ages on the internet and a system. When we're all interacting online via social media, it's very easy to forget that I'm a grown man, a 39-year-old man, and interacting with a young person and someone who's almost 2 decades younger than me, and so it's not appropriate that I sort of judge them by the same standard I would judge myself. So I can acknowledge I've been an asshole. I think that tweet I did recently when he left the server ahead of schedule, highlighting that was just petty. It's not a news story. It's not in the public interest. It was just a petty thing to do because of our history. So, I acknowledge that. And listen, I think, when I talked to him, I sort of understood it a little bit better now that actually, as a working class guy, who probably did have his head up his arse in his younger years, and he sort of looks up to us because we're from that same sort of world and income bracket, right? So probably was a bit disaffecting to see the people that you can identify with most of all calling you a cunt every week, which doesn't mean the criticism was necessarily invalid, but I think some of it was probably needlessly vitriolic. And I think he's a changed character, not entirely reformed, but I definitely think you're getting a much more mature, better version of who he is. Now, he's also one of those people, and I have some sympathy for this, that attracts the most mentally ill haters and obsessives. And I saw that today on the HLTV forums.
What's he done like?
Well, what indeed, Duncan? What indeed?
Just getting kicked from this team, basically.
Well, so, okay. This account, right, is obsessed with Smooya, by the way, on HLTV, and made a thread. Smooya threw a tantrum after being kicked from Movistar, right? This was, it reads, he has been recently kicked from Movistar Riders for being beyond toxic, right? By the way, this person, no insight whatsoever, just a narrative they've formed in their diseased brain. And just to prove how fucking, and then just a gap he is, yesterday on his stream, he tried to humiliate Mopos and Alex, who were the other, they were the remaining 2 members alongside him from the previous roster changes, mocking them for having very low hours on CSGO during the fucking player break. The funniest thing is he doesn't have the balls to humiliate these guys, and then this person proving that they're very well links to Steam accounts of other pro players who obviously have been on a player break and therefore have low hours. As if Smooya would, apropos of nothing, talk about Olaf Meister or Dupree or Shox or Tizian or Tabson, people he doesn't play with. But apparently it's based on he doesn't have the balls to humiliate.
It would also be as you say, just contextually, it's way more appropriate to call out your co-workers for not putting in the work to essentially help you do your job, as opposed to what's he going to say to Dupree? Hey, Dupree, dickhead, you haven't done enough hours.
I know.
Therefore, I'm going to win.
Yeah, mental, isn't it, right? So anyway, they linked to some clips. And Smooya would delete.
Is there actually anything vaguely in these clips? Is it just like a reach or something?
No, so basically, then he linked to the VOD, and the VOD is now muted. And basically, all it said, it was just Smooya saying, these guys don't have any hours. They're not putting the practice in. It's been hard, it's been hard for me because I'm still grinding. It was the most tame stuff, and then it got muted. But
it's pretty reasonable if you end up getting kicked from the team. You were carrying the team and you did the most hours and everyone else didn't do your work. It sounds pretty reasonable.
And this is the other best bit, right? This guy linked to this other popular Spanish speaking forum and said, and if you don't believe me, look, these people are translating it on this forum. And if you look at all the replies on the forum, they're going, Smooya is right. Smooya is right. You know, it's like they're all supportive of his stance because obviously he's the best player on that fucking team. And, you know, if other people aren't putting in the performances, but you're the one being dropped, if other people aren't putting in the work and you're the one being dropped, I think you have a genuine grievance. Yeah. So
take umbrage with that, of course.
So this is what I mean when people consider Smooya as a pickup. This is the type of shit that plagues him based on past stuff. And, you know, I know what it's like to have like just irrational people that will give the most either the most uncharitable interpretation of something you've done imaginable, and you have done it, but you would have to be mentally ill to interpret it in the way they have, or they just invent something whole cloth. And this is a bunch of exaggerated shit. That's all it is, but it's on the front page of HLTV, and probably, you know, because of the way the system works when it comes to picking up players, orgs are probably going to see that and go, oh, he's bloody at it again. And now there's no way for them to corroborate that actually all he said was the truth, and fans of that team even support what he said. Crazy.
I mean, I will say one other thing, though, which is, where's all the media? Where's all the media, Smooya? If you want to show you've changed, how about show that for even half an hour you cannot be a dickhead on camera? I haven't seen any proof yet. So all I'm going to say is that, right? That's one of the ways for real you can give essentially what's called social proof. You can show people who might recruit you. They might even just be people who are peers of yours who just happen to put the interview on while they say SDMing or something. If they hear you talk and you talk about how you've reflected on your career, how you've learned things, how best move of all, by the way, I'll even give you this free advice, is just actually admit to a couple of things that you did wrong in a couple of teams, like maybe in Big say something I didn't understand actually what they were trying to do tactically, or maybe in Chaos, you know, I took it for granted that, whatever angle, you know.
If you watch that HLTV podcast, he did sort of talk a little bit about that. And
it's like you basically that's like if fucking Barack Obama goes on a late night news show and goes, what do you mean I'm facing the press? It's like, you know, your guy's fucking giving you a fucking massage while he does it. Like the HLTV podcast isn't fucking going deep, is it? I'm talking about doing like an interview or something. Do one with Richard.
Well, you know what, Duncan? I'm glad that you suggested that, because I think now is the time, right? I mean, if he's out of the team, and therefore he can't upset his org by coming on and doing a real raw podcast with me, yeah, I think probably is the perfect time. I've got a couple of them coming actually. I did one with Harry, the commentator, and I did one with Alex, the IGL, and we got into all the Cloud9 stuff on that. So yeah, that'll be a good one. There was some interesting bits and pieces on that actually. So yeah, it's probably the time. Me and Smooya will probably have a sit down, and I think, as I said, I think it's the perfect time. And I think he is a reformed character. I think stuff like this is just absolute nonsense. It's the curse of having ever been controversial. Like the way the internet operates is you're never allowed to grow or develop. That one bad moment is who you are forever. And actually, it's the entirety of your personality. And any good thing you do is, you know, you're masking your true intentions, which are evil. You know,
whatever, in my opinion, was Steele. Because even though Steele objectively did something wrong, he did what actually, by the way, is a crime. Here's the thing: he did it, but basically was a model motherfucking citizen who showed, basically was exactly what you would want the dictionary definition of a reformed, rehabilitated individual to be. Perfectly. I always said it was wrong. Never, by the way, went out of his way to even make lighthearted jokes about it. He often wouldn't even get involved in those. He maybe did the odd one. In general, always was quite remorseful years after the fact, even though he could easily, by the way, have just said 4 years in, that was fucking years ago. I didn't go to court. You know, you could easily have gotten indignant. Didn't do any of that. But as you're saying, right, and in the same exact pattern, what would happen was this: any person who had access to the internet, who for 1 second, when they saw Steele's name on a screen, felt any sort of frustration, would just go, right, now it's my turn to just haul him over the exact same calls all over again, as though he now has to apologize to me personally for something he did at the time. Could have been 5, 6, 7 years ago at this point in time. So, no, the saddest thing is that it's I noticed this years ago, unfortunately, with social media mobs. It's never actually about what you did. It's about the idea that that specific person gets to take out the frustrations of their life on you. that is the pretext for them to essentially just beat you up. Like you're just in the stocks and they can walk by, pop you in the face and keep going. And the problem is, even if one person does that, it's not the end of the world. But if 100 people do it or 1,000 people do it, you get in a dark place.
Well, yeah, and you've got a broken motherfucking jaw, haven't you? As we know. So yeah, look, I want obviously him to land right, and you know, I think Fnatic could be a really good fit. But I guess we'll have to wait and see. The real sad part of it is obviously he has said in the past if he doesn't get a relatively decent offer, then Valorant it is, and I don't know. I don't like the idea of seeing a talent we haven't even seen the best of yet, in my opinion, moving to new games where, you know, it seems the overall ceiling is a bit lower.
He'd probably be one of the best players in that game based on the little I've seen.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, tens is right. So as adverts go for the skill ceiling in that game, I mean, that's pretty. That's all you need to know, I would say. But anyway, that's the Smooya story that I myself broke. Since we already touched upon it, we can talk about EG. They were in the news as well. Stanislaw taking temporary leave from EG in the classic reverse cuckoldry. We joked about this when Daps was announced as coach. We said, wouldn't it be great if Daps did a fucking heel turn finally, and he's the one that gets to make Stan watch from the cupboard.
This is what's beautiful. It's almost like actually Daps did realize. I'll give you the reference right now, and this is a straight fire reference. If people remember in season 2, I'm pretty sure it was season 2 of Game of Thrones, when it's the whole like Battle of the Five Kings, right? There's that moment when Robb Stark captures Jaime Lannister. These are all spoilers, of course, but if you can't handle it, get the fuck out the channel, right? So when he captures Jaime Lannister, if you remember famously, Jaime Lannister, because obviously Robb Stark's just like a boy, he basically says to him, like, we don't need to have a war, you know, like, let's just have like a 1v1 fight, basically, me and you, and whoever, it's like a classic David versus Goliath scenario, you know, whoever wins, the armies don't have to fight, it's just over at that point. And then basically Robb Stark says to him, like, nah, we're not going to do that, because if we did, you'd win. Right? It's almost like Daps actually figured out his strength, right? Which isn't being like the abrasive one, the one who's going to stand up in a room and be like, should we kick this guy? It's like he knew he had to do it the most passive-aggressive corporate way. So he went, okay, then Stan. No, I'm totally fine with the past years. I don't have any resentment at all. Like, yeah, I will be taking this position as your boss, overseeing everything in HR here at Evil Geniuses. And then he calls him in, you know, the next week, Stan, nice to see you. By the way, it's getting a bit awkward, you know, but I'm enjoying this new relationship we've got. So how are things going with the team? Like, any turn around the results? I mean, it's only been a week, hasn't it? That's been lunch. Oh, okay, yeah, just keep you up to date. A week later, he just goes, Stan, listen, about how it's been going. I know your plans last week wasn't quite... We're going to have to let you go. I'm afraid that it's not working out. What do you mean, no, Daps? I didn't get any warning or anything. Yeah, I'm so sorry, but your services are no longer required. So can you please just sign this form and validate your parking on the way out? Bitch. So you said something. Oh, sorry, said it, and there's no reason to feel bad about it. So see you, bitch. Dude, that's like he actually did no joke. Like he did him the truly, like, you know, the revenge is a dish, it's called. This motherfucker went through everything. He went off to Valorant, was a player, came all the way back. He's like, I'm not even a coach. I'll coach just to fire you personally, Stanislaw. The best move now, by the way, would be if tomorrow Daps just stood down. Like, yeah, I'm actually not. I mean, I'm retiring time from Counterstrike.
I can retire now. I've done it. I've done what I wanted. Like, yeah.
No, dude. As soon as Stanislaw was
fired,
like, it was like that scene at the end of Watchmen, that image where Ozymandias is like, I did it! And all the screens in the world are like, Stanislaw finally removed from Evil Geniuses by Daps. Like,
yeah, perfect. Like,
meanwhile, 1,000 miles away on some fucking veranda as the sun goes down, fucking Chet, I'm a pet, just has one tear. Like, you did it for all of us. Even his dad, is he still alive? I don't know.
He's coaching TSM Valorant, isn't he?
Right, there we go. Would make sense. By the way, you could have inserted any names for those there, like a Mad Libs. Like, isn't he the vice president coach of T1 Hots? Like, yeah, I guess. You know, could it be anyone at this point? Valorant is such a shit show, isn't it? It's like some Mad Libs of Counterstrike.
It just hasn't. It just hasn't. It's like, you know, prospectors. You know, when you're panning through the shit to find gold, it's still very much in the panning phase, and it's gonna, when the Overwatch League dies on its arse, it's gonna get another.
It's gonna test it like a motherfucker.
Yeah,
people gonna have no job after that. I'm telling you.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting. Basically, this is like, again, just because I've been on the history of baseball recently, this is just like the first phase of baseball, where it literally is just fucking, drunks and dock workers just who can just hit a ball really hard because they're massive. And we're essentially going to distill it down. The CS talent, generally the younger guys that can hang and contribute. Guys like Tens, obviously he's not going anywhere. They're going to stick around, and then you're going to get the influx from the Overwatch players, and happens again. And then, probably by the third, fourth, in about 2 years from now, you're probably going to have an actual settled scene where we all know who is actually going to be there in the long term and who isn't. But for now, it's just a Wild West, isn't it? Here's the thing: the Stanislaw statement he put out. I'll read it to you guys. He said, after discussions with the teammates and organization, I have decided to remove myself from the starting lineup for the upcoming ESL Pro League season. Now, just to put it in context as well, Pro League is huge to these orgs, and performing well in Pro League is huge for these orgs. It's one of the things that I, because of the Louvre agreement and everything, it's one of the things that's literally factored in to when they're talking to sponsors, etc.
Just don't get it. Like, fans don't get that in some sense. Like Richard's talking about, Pro League could actually be considered more important than like Cologne or Katowice. Like, in a very specific sense, yeah.
Well, I think if we're talking purely from the marketing perspective, because it's a lot of content potentially over a lot of time, plus the general number of eyeballs you get for Pro League. I mean, and the fact that these orgs are directly partnered with the league operator, and they're all doing a revenue share, etc. Yeah, of course, it's probably more important, because a one-off prestigious tournament win with prize money the org gets none of. It's good optics. It's good to put in a deck. It's good for social engagement, right? But an actual structured league that's structured like Pro League is obviously of more interest to the suits and the money men. Because it actually yields a dividend, and a dividend that's performance related. So the timing sucks. The rest of the statement says, following our team's long stint in Europe, along with mandatory quarantine requirements due to international travel, I've unfortunately not felt the positive impact of the player break as expected. Speaking honestly, I am not mentally ready for more international travel and competition. Rather than overextending myself mentally and physically, I plan to spend the next few weeks at home with the full expectation of rejoining my team in Europe in advance of Blast Premier Fall. During this time, I will be watching and cheering for the team, watching from the cupboard, masturbating furiously as Daps steps into the active roster in my absence. I appreciate the understanding of my teammates and evil geniuses for being accepting of my request for additional time away, and thank you to our fans for their continued support. Now, so what that statement says to me, obviously I know Stan, I think he recently got engaged as well. He hasn't obviously had a lot of time to spend with his loved ones, and that it always has been a problem. For the teams that have North American members on that have had to decamp to Europe. So I am a little bit sympathetic to that. But what that statement says, reading between the lines, is the break didn't fix it for me. I want more time. And it looks like it's come a little bit out of left field. And it's come out of left field ahead of a tournament that I'm really sure EG didn't want to be going in under strength. Also, I'll just add, if Daps, who is now the stand-in for that tournament, if they start performing again with Daps as the stand-in,
you don't bring him back, of course.
Stan's not coming back. Yeah, exactly.
You have to kick him if they're good. If they're good without him, I agree, Richard. He's had enough time. It's not like he only had 3 lands or something. He's had ages. And all these pieces that are coming out, he's had coaches coming, like, give me a break. Like, here's the problem. There's plenty of players in the scene get short shrift or unfair reason for being kicked. This wouldn't even be unfair. Like, you had a mega crack at it.
And I always tread carefully on this, because I know one of the things people like to do is go, oh, when you don't care about player mental health or player health, you said Zipnix was probably misrepresenting how burned out he was and all of this stuff. It's like, no, I just don't think it's wrong to speculate based on timings when people say things. So Stan, listen, 8 weeks. And, you know, I always think back to what Sponge said when he was talking about, you know, players wanting more time off, or talking about being burnt out, or talking about not wanting to live away from home. And he said, I fucking did it. I did it, and I did it in a team that was struggling at times. I got shit on every fucking week while I was away from home. I've got loved ones too, but if that's what you have to do to succeed, suck it the fuck up and go and do it.
And with the Brazilians, think about those guys. They just live away from home all the fucking time because that's what it takes to do the job. Here's the problem, Richard. If I'm talking in like an absolute vacuum, I have a lot of actual sympathy for these Americans that have to go to Europe. It's unusual. It did never have to happen in the past. You never, ever had to do this. You only ever had to go for the tournament, which probably meant at most you'd be there a couple of months if you did a few tournaments on the trot. Otherwise, it's one tournament. You're right back a week, 2 weeks later. Listen, I get it. For you, it's a totally new world and it's really harsh. The problem is, as Richard's sort of alluding to there are literally entire regions and groups of players and people who've done that, and that is just their everyday life if they want just to compete with you, mate. Just to be where you already were at. Let's face it, even like 6-7 years ago, forget even recently. So my problem with this whole topic is this, Richard, is like, if I don't think Stanislaw was out of line with how he phrased that, but there is an element where I do feel like, I noticed there's no fucking actual like time span given here. So are we supposed to just sit back while you, IGL, of a team that's effectively done almost nothing relative to how much you were paid for 1 year, while you just sit back and go, do I feel like playing this month? No, I think next month. If I'm leading this project, mate, like, you're at the end of the fucking, the end of your rope anyway. Like, I'm not waiting for you. Like, if you don't want to play, that sucks for you. I hope you can fix it. I hope you can find a team that has better hours for you. Because I just think of the state NACS is in at the moment. It's like, mate, this is the ultimate beggars can't be choosers scenario. There are no places to go, and you have no extra chances. Like, you have to be good today and perform. Otherwise, there isn't a job for you in Counterstrike, which is sad, but it's the state of the world.
I mean, I'll give EG massive credit here because, this probably sounds savage as fuck, but whatever, who cares? You know, I'm the bad guy, whatever. If the in-game leader of that underperforming team that I am paying an exorbitant salary to, keeping in mind we've already had to essentially change what we are as a team based on its regionality. But you know, Evil Geniuses is an NA org that essentially is one of the last men standing in NA, right? And so and is now pivoting towards being a European org, not just in placement but also in roster, right? That's a huge thing to have to break away from, given the history of the organization and all their sponsors and associations. But anyway, right? It's failed as a team for a long time. And if the IGL of that team comes to me, I'm running EG, and says, listen, I know I've just had 8 weeks off, but I'm newly engaged. I'm missing my family. I want to spend time with the people I care about. I can't turn up for this hugely important tournament to your financial strength. I just go, well, look, mate, let's sever ties now. Like, are you refusing to play in that tournament? If you are, that's a breach of your contract. Let's just end this relationship now. Because I don't see I don't see how EG can do more at the moment. You know, they've hung in, they've stayed in the game, they've made signings, and now they've spent money they probably don't have. Keep in mind the additional cost of just even having to have players from North America living abroad. They're footing that bill, and now you're turning around and saying, after a break, I need a longer break. I don't know if I'm a cunt at heart, and all of the stuff I've said about player rights down the years was all a psyop lie that I've done to myself. But I think this is out of order almost. I think if it was me, I would just start looking for new IGLs now. Do Daps as the stand-in, and I would have Stan replaced by the Blast.
I'd even, by the way, potentially start thinking, what's the game plan that lets me be European in a year from now? Because I have to say, this is not the first time this has happened now, Richard. Even the ones who publicly haven't said it, like some of the Team Liquid players, privately, they think the same thing. They think it's bullshit that they have to go to Europe for all the shows. I just tell them myself, Richard, I'm raw as fuck. I just tell them, is it bullshit when they pay you $20,000 fucking to play a child's video game, you stupid cunt, and you want to stay home, get the same money, and then not do the job? I always tell them, like, what job do you think you do? That's why I tell people, if people think I'm bad on podcasts, podcast. I told loads of pro players, you don't even earn that money. Literally. Like, they could A, get that money if someone totally worse than you was in that seat, and B, doesn't matter. I even told them, you are aware, even Simple doesn't earn back the money that they pay him at the moment. That's the way the fucking industry is structured, you moron. So if anything, it should be the other way around. You should be trying to do everything you can to keep that org happy. Especially because, like I alluded to, like, if this keeps being a problem for North American players, and like I said, if I'm an NA org, I'm like, I've just got to have a European team now because these American players don't want to fucking do it. Or if they say they do, 6 months later they don't. Because I get it. Like I said, in a vacuum,
that'll have no team at all, right? Yeah.
True. I understand in a vacuum why this sucks, but like I say, mate, that's just the way the game is right now. That would be like me going, oh, I really want to do this gig. Yeah, but it's like, oh, I have to go away from home for 2 months. What job is it? Working on an oil rig? Yeah, well, you aren't suited to be a fucking oil rig worker then, dickhead. That is literally the job. You don't get to just go on the weekend, do you? That's not, by definition, that is not the job you're doing. So I get it. It's not what you signed up for years ago when you were doing CSGO, but that is what CSGO has been for over 1 year now. And quite frankly, there's literally, thus far, if you're a pro player, there's no green light to say that's over. You've got a couple of lands coming up, mate. You have no idea. This might be your, if you're an NA pro player and you're watching this show right now, understand this could be the way that things go, having to go to Europe for 3 to 5 months for the next 2 or 3 years. Like, this could just be the rest of your CSGO career. So really think about that. Think if you can handle it.
Yeah. It's just crazy. And the thing is, Stan's been around the block, man. It's like, this is a guy that I
believe he's also burned out on this team, though, if you look at the results. It looks like he's also tried everything and nothing's worked, you know.
Yeah,
and then I could believe he's also just mentally at the end of the project, you know.
Yeah, I mean, but then in which case, like, just have
you can just rip the bandit off, yeah.
Just have the nuts to go on and move on to the next phase, Valorant or whatever the fuck it is you're doing next, mate. You know, because like this, I don't know. This is an harsh statement, but it's what I feel. Like, it is just my fees. It's not a fact necessarily, but this feels almost like if you had to write a declaration, I'm just milking it now. Like, if you just had to say publicly, I am just milking the last salary I can out of this and putting in minimum effort. This is the type of thing I used to do when I used to get bored in fucking real jobs. And I would just be like, right, well, it's the old bad back sick note again. You're just milking it. You're looking for something else. You've tuned the fuck out. And you're just going to take the piss as much as you can get away with out the door. Because I don't want to be here. You don't want me here. So let's just fucking see how long we can fucking put up with each other for so I can keep my bank account filling up. Like, that's not, you know, I've got huge sympathy for the org in this situation because as well, the optics, if Stan gets to come out in the PR war and says, I wanted more time off because I was burned out. We all know that's the magic word where suddenly you have to acquiesce and forget that the orgs are paying a salary or that players have obligations. As soon as the word burnout gets used, he just goes, well, you don't care about mental health if you think that actually, you know, so, like, if you ever say as well, by the way, yeah, mental health, it's great that we're having a drive and an awareness about it. Your mental health, much like physical health, you have to be actively engaging and doing things about
responsible.
it.
Yeah, exactly. Self-responsibility. Absolutely.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that, right? There's nothing wrong with holding that opinion. Now, obviously, as I've said in the past, there are diseases like depression, which deliberately, like a virus that gets on your PC, and the first thing it does switches off the antivirus and the firewall, so the rest of the poisonous shit can get in. Depression's like that. It removes your capacity for self-care. So again, I'm sympathetic, but you've still got to be actively engaged. You know, recognize the signs. What can you do? Improve. Talk to people about it. Don't be worried about the stigma. You know, just rocking up 8 weeks after, you know, at the end of a player break and basically telling your employers, I need more time off, and having not even intimated or indicated that you needed that, I think that's bad form. I think it's bad form, especially given you're in a massively privileged position. I don't see how EG could have been more patient with you as an IGL, more patient with you as a player, and yet this is their reward. They're now going in to a huge tournament having to use a stand-in player who hasn't even played CS, in a year? You know, and couldn't hang in Valorant either, by the way. So God only knows what they're getting. But hilariously, if they do perform, fuck it. Stan's got to go. Stick with Daps. But yeah, if I'm EG, I'm literally looking for a long-term replacement now. I can't have any sympathies because I'm just watching millions of dollars fly out the fucking window every month. And this is meant to be my flagship team. And
like if anyone's a pro player, so for example, people who are working in the CSPPA, think about what I'm about to say, right? So you're a pro player, you play for a team in the game, right? So you have managers who work above you have coaches who work above you have, right? Is there a scenario where anyone who works with you is allowed to just go, by the way, apropos of nothing, I'm taking another month off, just do everything yourself?
Yep. Yep.
Like, you are adults. You aren't children. You aren't a 16-year-old who's on some fucking laser tag game in a fucking alternate reality where that's like the hotness. And like, oh, I'm messing around, but I'm going to say, you're an adult getting paid an enormous salary to do, are you ready? This is the one that you're all going to hate, a high-pressure job. So you know what? If you can't handle a high-pressure job right now, like, for example, you're burned out, mentally you're having trouble, that means by definition you cannot do your job. Therefore, at best, you can throw yourself on the mercy of your employer and be like, look, can I have time off? Certainly something you can request. Different cases are going to warrant different judgments on that, by the way. The reason I personally thought the Astralis one was very egregious is because, by definition, they'd played almost the most Counterstrike you could play, while simultaneously producing the best results you could get, while simultaneously already being the most diligent players and teams, where you knew they already went to bed on time and had the fucking water and went to the gym. Like, they aren't the guys that are out there where they're just doing a frat house lifestyle, then get the 20k and then say they're burned out. Like, those players I don't have as much sympathy for. I don't know in the case of EG. I mean, obviously going to Europe's no joke. You do have to basically go and quarantine a million times and go back and forwards. I've no doubt that's all harsh, but yeah, unfortunately, I also feel the same thing, Richard. I know it's going to sound extreme, but the way this is handled, like coming at the very end of the break and being like, but I need more time right before, that sounds like you're just defrauding me, dude. Like, what is this, a scam? Like, what am I paying for?
Yeah. And look, maybe we are just a pair of jaded assholes, and maybe we're like those guys who reply to ESPN when they show esports, and they're there going, video games will never be sport. That's not a sport. Maybe we are just being a bit jaded or whatever.
But I just get sick of players acting like I say, players still use the rhetoric as though they were some kind of person Marx was talking about with the proletariat who's being like exploited. Meanwhile, by definition, they're the motherfucking robber baron. And they have no, by the way, they never give any quarter to anyone else I notice in this scene.
Yeah. No,
so like if their team, by the way, if their team, God forbid, just paid a week late, they'd be crying out their fucking eyes. It's ridiculous. Like there's got to be, what's good for the goose is good for the gander, for fuck's sake. Like, we're all just people in the industry. So I'm fine with players having these breaks, but let's get some leeway for orgs, etc. then.
Yeah, and look, I mean, we've talked about, like, just to make it clear as well, fully support the player break, and a player break in a season is absolutely needed, especially because you can't trust orgs not to just fucking sign you up for every tournament going because they need, billable hours for their fucking, sponsors or whatever. It's ridiculous. So obviously fully support the break, but, the break is a sizable one. I think it's a responsible one. I think it comes at the right time of the season. I think all the TOs have leaned into it and respected the player break. I think it's outrageous to state everybody should have to adhere to the break. Like criticizing WePlay for running a tournament over the player break is nonsense, because those players obviously want the exposure and want to play as much as they can and don't play as much as Tier 1 pros.
Oh, maybe that's why CSPPA were cool with ESL taking the EPL slots, because those teams then got some extra time off, right?
I knew it.
Makes sense now.
Yeah.
There was always good intentions, guys. Always good intentions. Just where do those lead if they're paved into a road again?
Yeah.
Two on the nose reference then, whatever.
Yeah, very much so. So anyway, look, let's move on from that. I think EG need to make a change just based on that. It looks like, Stan's time's coming to an end. I know he's meant to be back. He says he'll be back for Blast. But yeah, just really, if I was an EG fan, I'm losing my mind right now. Like I am absolutely.
I'd be sick and tired of it. It's just annoying at this point, isn't it? Especially as you say, like the moves they've made, they haven't even made any bad moves. Every move had like an upside. Seems like a nice charge. They got any good player here. They spent money. They got to hear the coach. Like something has to work eventually. Like if it doesn't, everyone has to get fired. That's the way the fucking industry works.
Yeah. Right. Well, we can now segue into just a bit of high comedy. I just enjoyed this one. This was because obviously on the last couple of shows, I think we have tried to explain to you that not everyone who claims to have insider knowledge has insider knowledge. Not everyone who poses as a journalist is a journalist. That's a problem just out there in the world, let alone esports. And so I will bring you back to the high comedy that is the Danish League CSGO Twitter account. Now up to 7.2 thousand followers. So what we're doing here is we're getting a gauge of like how many morons there are in the scene. Still waiting for Magisk to Complexity to happen. Still waiting for Dupree to join NIP. Still waiting for MSL to join Fnatic. You know, no worries though, guys. It's all fine. They are definitely juiced in. They really know what's going on. So I saw this story, this report happen, and it was great. CSGO leaks tweet out. It's just to underline just what a bunch of fucking frauds they are and how you're all stupid cunts for upvoting anything they say. MSL and AZ will be joining the new Nordavind squad. More info to come. Now, let me just talk you through, right, what went on prior to this tweet so you get an idea of what a fucking sad little grifter they are that runs this account, right? So, MSL had announced, hadn't he? Remember? Go back, rewind the tape, bring it up, Jamie, whatever. Go have a look. MSL had announced, I've got 4 players and we're going to be looking for an org. Meanwhile, Nordavind, who didn't have a team anymore, they said, we'll be staying in CS. They just made this statement just to let people know, listen, don't have a team now. We've dropped our team, but we are still sticking around. And so this cunt, this skip rat, saw those 2 things and thought, this is a fucking match made in heaven. Nordavind, yeah, exactly. I am the Weaver, right? As Bill Hicks would say. And so he's thrown that fucking Hail Mary. That's like the easiest Hail. It's not even a Hail Mary. It's just a regular pass. That should happen.
It's actually a clever angle as well, by the way, because it has obvious plausible deniability there. As you're saying, it looks like it would be happening even if it isn't. You know, it's easy to believe it, isn't it? You know.
And then what was brilliant about it, Rush B Media, who obviously they've had their own issue, like, for example, when they reported some speculation off our show, whole cloth, as just the thing that was happening with the NAFly leaving Team Liquid. All we said was, I think if anyone was going to leave, it was NAFly. Yeah, I don't think it was Ryan. I think it was
some
one
newer
of his
guy.
staffers.
I can't remember. It's not a famous guy.
Yeah,
a couple of things.
Basically, just some arsehole who got worked, right? Like, which is another thing you have to be careful about.
For sure.
But then Rush B Media, and it was subsequently then later reported on HLTV, and I will say this about HLTV, when they say a report from, they do their own little check and ask around before they run the report. Obviously, it would make them look bad. That's why you only see it from like Nell, Rush B Media. You used to see.
You notice they don't put the Danish CSGO League ones on there.
No, exactly. Yeah,
exactly.
Right, because they do their own.
That's one area I do wonder about fans. Yeah. We have enormous Twitter accounts. If you can just get away with lying about stuff and get all that, you think we couldn't do it tomorrow? The point is, by the way, even though you can get away with it, there's always a consequence. Like the consequence is eventually people find out you're a liar and you're just making it up. Yeah.
So it was announced almost immediately after that tweet, maybe even as a result of it, that Nordavind were in talks with O Plano, which of course is KNG's Brazilian team, that, didn't do too well at the RMR, had their moments. And that's what they were thinking about signing. And this was then also reported in the Brazilian media itself. There's a journalist called Roque Marquez, who I follow. I think he's generally a reliable source of information. I can't think of anything he's got wrong.
That's some pretty big stories. He used to be on ESPN Brazil, if people know.
Yeah, he used to be on ESPN Brazil, and now he's on global.com, which is their sports website, big Brazilian sports website. So he's a legit reporter, and he reported this as well. So it's, as far as I'm concerned, that's a legit story. Now, where's your little red X, Danish Leaks? Where's your little red X about MSL joining this team? He literally as well replied, right? Somebody said, did MSL's team not work out? Right? Joking about this report. And Danish Leaks is so dumb and so bad at leaking information. They hadn't even heard that Nordavind, even though it was on the biggest CS website. And they replied with, this is his new team. They doubled down on it. Like, is this going to stop now? Is this madness of you fucking putting this shit on Reddit going to stop now? Will it stop now, please? They are fucking grifters. I
also appreciate, by the way, that he's just taken his name and changed it to, it has like a globe emoji. Globe CSGO Leaks.
I know, yeah.
So now he's already fucked the whole Danish scene up when he tried it, but now he's just going to do all of World Counterstrike Leaks sound.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'll add as well, right? What Danish leaks has he got? This is
even this one's amazing, right? Like, look at this. There's one where he had, right, he himself is commenting on the Whistler Krakow one where they're going to pick up some Polish player, and he replies and he goes, "We just heard about the rumor from one of our own sources, but it seems a Polish page already wrote something about it."
Yeah.
So he's doing that again, Richard. He's again doing the thing where when you've already actually published a full story report, he just goes, "Yeah, I heard about that. Tick for me." Like, no, you don't get it. Yeah, Jay, you don't get a tick when you have a point. He didn't actually put a tick this time, but he may as well have, like, what is that? Like, you don't get credit for that.
That's like that Paul Selector sketch where Ricky Gervais is always giving himself a gold star, like, for being recognised on the streets. You know what I mean? That's a goldie. That's a green tick. This guy's fucking mental, right? You're called Danish leaks. That at least suggests to me you're some sort of specialist in the Danish scene, right? Well, let's assess all of the moves that have gone on involving Danish people. He said Magisk was going to Complexity. No, that didn't happen. He said MSL was joining Fnatic. That didn't happen. When that didn't happen as well, he crafted a narrative absolutely whole cloth that I know personally isn't true, right? He said Dupree was going to NIP. Like, those moves haven't even been discussed.
Yep.
Also said lucky to Astralis, even though it took credit for that, even though it had been reported by another reporter called Puffin CSGO back in June. He missed ESSA tag to Complexity.
If you are Danish CSGO leaks, the idea you can't get the info for ESSA tag and Gade, you have no sources, mate. You have like two people's grandma. That's it. Like, what are you talking about?
He missed Gade to Big, right? It said MSL's joining Nordvind. Like, got that. It's insane. Like, you can't even get... This is when I used to dunk on Vacarme back when I was a Cadred writer, because Vacarme was the French website. They never beat us to a French roster shuffle. We always knew about it first. It's like, that's your beat. Like, you have to have some fucking pride if you're a reporter. If you're a beat reporter, you own that shit. Like, think about all the great sports reporters who, like, as soon as they say there's a leak, or a move or a transfer or something's happening, you just go bing. It's as good as it's done. It's solid gold.
You will have probably seen this.
All your shit.
It's why it was such a scandal, although it wasn't actually played up enough, because unfortunately the reporter isn't actually that famous enough. Dude, it's why it was really shocking when that fucking reporter, I think it was actually a famous one, like Adam Schefter or something. You know, in the off-season of the NFL, where that reporter on the day of the draft night just made that shit up about Aaron Rodgers, where he basically made it sound like he had a real leak that, like, he's going to leave immediately. And then really it was just sort of like ages before he just sort of heard, yeah, he's just not happy. He just dude, he just span it, like you're saying. He span it as though it was like super insider info. Like, it's amazing that people actually think in esports like this is just cool. Like, you are playing with people's lives and careers. Like, this is no joke.
Yeah, but it's like, right, you know, if like there are some people, by the way, which like you've just got to take your hat off to. Like, I know what it takes to be juiced in 100% of the time to know everything that's going on. It's really mental. Hard. Like, to put it into context, I am not now. I am not the guy that I was in terms of like knowing all the roster moves, knowing everything that went on behind the scenes. Now I'm only interested in the shit I'm interested in. I'll only report about the shit that either like falls into my lap or stuff I'm really going hard on. And even then, I'm sort of like getting a bit fucking bored of it, because esports just feels like, how many more big scandalous stories am I going to break? How many more big scandalous stories are we going to see? And nothing's going to change. Like, if I break a story today, FaZe involved in scam, hypothetical, they would never do that, of course. 1 week, everyone's going to go, wow, that's terrible. They put out an apology statement, and then next week they're being sponsored by McDonald's. So what is the point to any of it, right? So I'm beyond fucking jaded. I don't even know what comes, I don't even know what comes after jaded, mate.
Did you see the fan? Someone, it's like a mutual of ours, like some fan, because they put it on my Discord. I was crying laughing. Someone had a tweet, I can't remember, I think it was in response to you, Richard, when there was that story that was like, you know, about FaZe Clan working with McDonald's. It was, they took that classic Orwell quote about like what Big Brother would be, you know, human future. And instead of it being, you know, like the human future is like a boot stamping on a human face forever and ever. Instead, it was like that the future of esports is FaZe Clan working with McDonald's for diversity and inclusion reasons forever and Like, whoever did that, that's like a carve level like question. Like, crafting was fucking fire.
Mate,
whoever did that.
I did a stream about that. I went
because that really is what esports feels like it's going to be. Isn't it?
I went through all of the like McDonald's have active lawsuits now for fucking racial discrimination and sexual discrimination. Like, they're happening now, and you're coming out like, well, if we work with FaZe Clan, like, you can't ignore this. This can't be an industry I work in. Like, it's like, fuck this. So yeah, I don't know what comes after Jaden. But anyway, just to give you an idea, like I say, I talked about it earlier. I've got 2 phones, right? And they're on pretty much all the time. And you know, my source network can call that. And obviously, I've got my DMs open and I chase everything. I read all my DMs and I'm in there all the time. And that's for someone who doesn't give a fuck. To be someone like a Helwani or someone like that, mate, you don't understand the grind. You don't understand it. Like, because you've got to be ready to break your story at the fucking drop of a hat from the moment you hear about it. Because as soon as that information comes to you, the thing no journalists ever talk about when it comes to breaking stories, it's not only with you, it's probably with other journalists. And the people the story's about are probably via some insane counter-intelligence network going to know you're onto it almost immediately. So it is a race against time. To scoop somebody in a digital age is insanely hard. To do it consistently, to be considered the guy, it's an art form, right? So you have to respect these people. And I guess that's why I've got no time for this account at all, because it's just the laziest, shittiest hack attempts at being something that truly takes a lot of work. And it's getting all the plaudits for as if it was.
Here's the sad thing I even realize when I think about it. Because obviously people like us on shows will sometimes reference these sorts of moves just from the hypothetical angle. Here's the sad thing I've realized. I should just myself make an account. It's instead of being leaks, it's just throwing CSGO ideas. And all I do is this, Richard. I don't do leaks. I just say what moves I think teams should make. I just go, right, Fnatic, I would do plus MSL, plus AZ. You know, I just do that. And in no way am I pretending it's a thing, but that way the same effect can happen. The community can have their discussion and they can go, well, what if? And what if Smooya did play with Alex? Because that's fine, by the way. You know, there's got to be grist for the mill. You've got to have stuff to talk about. But yeah, I agree. What I hate about it is that this person is like pretending in any context to be a journalist. And especially, as you say, one of the most hooked in aspects of journalism, which is being on the cutting edge of like literally leaking information not yet officially confirmed. Like, you have to be the most legit people to do that. So it just shows the content fans have. Because as I said before, what I hate about this one particularly is, for some reason, it's only because there's not a personality attached that fans are cool with this. Because basically the upside to the fan is this: who cares if it's real? It might be something to talk about. But what's mad is the second you attach a face and a name to a journalistic endeavor, you just public enemy #1 for some mad reason, even if you do the same story. Like, if DK did the same reports but just better and more accurate, he'd get hit for it. What a ceiling fucking scene we have.
Oh, it really is crazy.
How does that incentivize anyone? It actually incentivizes you to be anonymous. The opposite of what you want, by the way, from a fucking journalist in investigative journalism. You want them to put their name on it.
Like, the people that really blow my mind are the ones that reply and go, do you know anything about Astralis yet? It's like, no, he knows absolutely fuck all about anything. He's got a source that, like, obviously gets sent the We Play rosters, the We Play Academy League rosters, nails them every time. Anything else is just fucking guesswork.
Oh, here's one thing we have to say, though, because here's the one thing I know you've seen it, but we've forgotten about it. This is the one thing I'm going to say. I can't say anything to this guy. It's a fucking nobody guy. He's probably doing it for attention. I'm sure he'll keep doing it. I can't say anything about plebs. Like I say, they want stories. But if you're an industry insider, please stop fucking retweeting shit like this, or even worse, doing the reply with the big eyes. He doesn't know anything, you idiot. You know more than that guy. Why are you doing the big eyes? As though you... Because what they're doing as well, Richard, is this fuckboy shit that people in CSGO... This is what people love to do in CSGO, is what they do is this, right? They themselves have heard the same rumor, but they're not a journalist, so they can't track it down and confirm it. Yeah. Right? So what they all do is they all pretend like, and imagine, thinking emoji. You know what I mean? Like, you just know it's happening. Stop being a daft cunt.
Yeah. So anyway, what do you think about the prospect of Oplano finally getting an org, and one that isn't native to Brazil, one that is established in a territory that, you know, probably hasn't had a lot of cause to cheer for Brazilian teams down the years?
I mean, to me, the sad thing about all of this is that, I mean, I know the MIBR guys don't get this in terms of the actual, like the players. I mean, they don't get it. They're like, really, the best thing that could have happened for both parties was that team just re-signed at the end of last year, and then they both went into this year, and they were just MIBR still. It was literally the best for all parties. So all I'll say is, in the context of why that didn't happen, which is that the players, like the aforementioned discussion, imagine themselves to be some sort of literal fucking street urchin working in a factory in some sort of like fucking Dickensian period where they're just being fed bread and water. That's what they tried to pretend MIBR's offer was. I would suspect, I'll go out on a limb here, they're not getting as much as their MIBR offer at this particular deal. They're probably getting an okay amount. Not if it's not a terrible org, but as you said, they haven't been a big power player in Counterstrike. I would suspect, listen, it's good in the sense that hopefully now they're going to go to a bunch of tournaments. We're going to get them to lands. They can eventually start working their way back to being a good team again. So I'm glad to see them play Counterstrike professionally. I think it would have been a tragedy if people like KNG had retired or had to just not play Counter-Strike for a year. That would be a joke. So I think it's good in that sense. I think they did fuck it up. Like, all I'm going to say is this. Your plan wasn't Nordivind all those months ago. Your plan wasn't to go in an org like this. And you definitely were trying to get a bigger deal. Like, you wanted to be in a top org. So I do think they sort of fucked it up, but they already fucked it up ages ago. So in that context, at least they're getting a team. I would say that. At least they're getting a team we can just watch them bloody play Counter-Strike now.
Yeah, I mean, the last time I watched them was that DreamHack, that North American DreamHack. They made it to the final, but they got absolutely abused by Extra Salt, who are like, probably the best team in that, bracket that's in that region that isn't, Liquid and whatnot. I still don't really know how to judge this team. I also suspect, based on the personalities, I suspect they would perform better in a LAN environment, actually. But for now, they've looked very inconsistent and ordinary. And when you look at their map pool, they seem to be like fools to themselves almost. And like, when I was doing the RMR, they had a tendency to pick Nuke, which was like staggering because they were like absolutely garbage on it. And yet it was the map they played the most. And they were awful.
That used to be their shit way back. Yeah. As we say, they took all that time off. That's the dumbest part about all this, Richard. Every fan is going to act like the only way this move can be judged is like the plus minus of what they could have got versus MIBR, or the idea that like, see, they are right. Like, no, the dumbest thing about all this was that all these players just essentially like crippled their career for this year. Like, they barely played. They haven't been relevant in Counter-Strike. By the way, they're lucky to finally get a team all together. I'm amazed they didn't get sort of like strip mined apart. Like, I thought what would happen eventually, which would be the saddest of all, is that what would happen is like KNG would get a team because he's really good, and then maybe Henny would get one, and maybe Lucas can come as well. And then what would happen is slowly they'd pick it apart, and then 2 or 3 of them wouldn't get a team, and they'd have bought themselves out for nothing. So I'm glad that at least didn't happen, because as I alluded to on a past episode, the biggest punchline of all of this was that if it was really ever about money, they immediately took the biggest L of all time by paying their own money to get out of their orgs. Like, that doesn't even make sense at that point, does it? But whatever. It's been a saga, this thing, unfortunately.
I mean, I'd love to, like, now that we're all kind of free and clear of it, I would love to know exactly what happened with MIBR and them, because in retrospect, it looks like such a stupid move. Like, it's one of the stupidest moves. It's like Ents getting rid of Alexi B levels. Like, it's insane. And so, like you say, I mean, what I was told, what I heard behind the scenes, wasn't that it was a bad offer. It was more in line with what the turnover was going to be for the org. And therefore, yeah, they were asking them to earn less overall, but it was security in a very insecure time. And so I don't know. It seems to me like you say, to buy yourself out of a contract, to say you have a plan, to call yourselves the plan, then to sit there hoping that a Brazilian footballer is going to come and save you, and then that doesn't happen. And then now you're in talks with a Norwegian organization who don't have a fraction of the spending power or reach of MIBR, frankly. Just looks like you've absolutely shot yourself in the foot for reasons I'll never understand. But then again, when you look at the players on this roster, that is their MO. That's what they do every time.
The saddest thing about this whole thing to me, Richard, is like the way they dealt with it, no matter what you think about them as players, was so wrong. I thought it was actually offensive to Counterstrike as like a professional industry, because basically what these players did, if people didn't follow the story, was during the negotiations, Richard, they were going on streams as they always do, and in Brazilian just popping off saying all sorts of shit on streams. And they were doing stuff, Richard, like, for example, there was some context, and I'd have to look up the exact context, in which Lurpis said something along the lines of, obviously he's like the general manager, whatever that term is, like a finance manager within the team, basically doing this deal. They basically made some sort of comment, and they just took it where it was a bit like what happened with you, where you said something that, like, if someone didn't know English, they could try and imply you were calling Blade a clown, but you weren't if anyone knew the basic. It was like that. Lurpis had made some comment, and so then they just kept, no joke, Kogu was just like hysterically going on about it. And he called me a child! He called me a bloody child! And it's like, he never ever done that, Richard. Like, that, no point. If you know Lurpis, by the way, this is the opposite of what he's like. He's literally like the ridiculous, like the Finnish fucking sniper that killed 1 million people, and it's just like, I killed 508. Like, he's not going to have any, he's not going to get emotional about business. The opposite. So,
ice in his veins.
That's how you already knew that they were full of shit on this, and that it was just basically the ultimate example of how toxic the behavior of these people as professionals is. By the way, I'll also throw this in there. As far as I can tell, people like Fallen and Fur have literally said things publicly that they could be taken to court for. Like, they have openly lied about the org and what the org did, and org did or didn't pay them money at certain times in like a scandalous way. Like, I heard stories of some of these people were getting tens of thousands of dollars extra, literally just from the org sort of being like, forget it, we'll just give you your bonus. And then they just like never ever acknowledged that. And then even later implied they were like cheated out of money. And then as usual, and this is where I actually hate pro players, when you ask someone, so how were you, remember your words, cheated out of money, you know what you always find out? Oh, I think I should have gotten more on a fuck you. Fuck everything you stand for if that's being cheated. Being cheated, by the way, is when someone actually steals from you. Someone actually brings you a new deal that's like false, and then they don't pay back on it. The idea you just in your mind, that's like saying you've been cheated by your girlfriend because you think a hotter girl should have dated you that doesn't even know you. What are you talking about? This is madness. Like, you're actually just unfurling your own mental insecurities onto other people. Because what I found sucked the most about this is, think of the track record. So they did this with this team, KNG and this current squad, about how much we're getting paid. And again, by the way, during an ongoing negotiation, hysterically calling your own like bosses basically like liars, pieces of shit. Then go before that. So before that, you had Fallen and Fur and all those guys who, remember, no matter how bad they play and how much they are paid, they're never allowed to be benched, otherwise you're a piece of shit, and they'll all come out publicly and besmirch the org. Then before that, you had Cold Zera, who, because you won't sell him tomorrow for half of his value, is now going to badmouth everyone in the org, thinking that'll get him out the day after. It won't, of course. Dickhead, it gets you out the day that you have to play your first game for FaZe. Oh, and you had your worst tournament ever. No, they never learned the lesson, by the way, that these consequences, like, actually because of their actions. So the track record is appalling, Richie. You go back before that when they were in SK Gaming, they treated them like shit on the way out. Then before that, they claimed they never even wanted to be in SK Gaming, then played for SK Gaming. For like, these players are beyond a joke. Like, I'm actually getting sick and tired of people I know are legit in the industry having to go up against these dickheads. And just because they're good at shooting people with crosshairs, they win in PR every time. They're fucking it up. Like, these are literally the worst people in business I've ever seen in esports. Like, consistently, they fuck up every deal. They're terrible for PR. I don't know. It's spun the other way. No, it's amazing because they're Brazilian. I wouldn't even want to be in that space if that's what you're going to deal with. Why the fuck would you?
Yeah. So we'll see how the deal with Nordavind goes and whether or not it will be concluded. And of course, that means MSL's team, which again, Danish leaks mysteriously.
You should have done. This is how you know that guy has no sense of humor. Because here's what you would actually do as a straight fire shit response when someone goes, I thought you said MSL time was joining. You just go, yeah, sorry, I'm just Danish CSGO because I don't have any Brazilian information. That would be the fucking banter line, wouldn't it? Like, that would at least show some self-awareness, you know?
Yeah, it would.
I could appreciate that at least, you know?
It would. But it's none of that. None of that. They're so desperate to get that account up to like 20,000, get a blue check on it, and then sell it. I
told you the most annoying thing about fuckers like that is they obviously, by definition, aren't someone famous. There's no one really cool. Like, this isn't DK going, I'm going to retire from journalism, so on the side I'll just make a fake account and still leak. Like, no one cool's doing this, by the way. So that effectively, by definition, it cannot be someone who's either A, qualified, or B, actually good at the job. So since you know it's a nobody, why do you all also always buy into that shit of like face reveal when it wouldn't be anyone you'd know, you stupid fuck? It would just be like, oh, that just looks like a generic fucking FIFA creator player. Like, what do you expect he's going to look like? It's just going to be a fucking, it's not like going to be like an artist sketch of the fucking Unabomber, isn't it? Like, what do you think? It's just a fucking nobody that had any information. What do they think's going to happen? Like, face reveal. Oh my God, it was Lionel Messi all along. Like, what do you,
I know. Yeah, you're not going to know anybody about it. It's so ridiculous. Like, but yeah, they've done this a ton. I mean, like, I've seen this like a procession of absolutely nobody's desperate to be somebody's, all with a grift, all with an angle. It's like, whatever happened to actually just doing good work and letting that be what you get spotted for? You know, what do you think I did? Do you think I started my fucking career like, but back in the day with like, haha, you know, source leaks and like I worked my way up and face reveal. No, I just fucking got in the trenches and did reporting and eventually got noticed, won some awards, and then just carried on snowballing that upwards by working hard and taking pride in what I do. It's no great fucking mystery. I didn't have to, you know, it's not that's all you have to do as well. That's it. That 9 times out of 10, that will work. Unless there's some mad industry conspiracy fucking you over. Like, that's it.
If anyone's seen the movie Clerks, in many ways, in all possible senses, you did have to snowball it up to make it in this industry.
Nice. I like that. All right, finger cuffs. Calm the fuck down, mate. Anyway, let's talk about the MSL team, which wasn't spotted by Danish leaks. Now, on Reddit, right, they've said, I'll read you the Reddit title, which
you know there's going to be some amazing shit here. I know.
Well, this was revealed by let me get the name right, Jackson, Jaxon. They do esports news. They've worked with some people that I know, and so far they seem to have a good record. I don't think they've announced anything that's happening that has been proven false or then hasn't come to pass.
Obviously, pointing what you're saying there, Richard. Notice that a new entity appears on the community, but they already have some level of verification and social proof by being known behind the scenes by people. Don't do any dodgy stories or reach for stuff they have no information on. Just do a couple of legit stories, and all of a sudden you can actually be referenced as a credible source.
Yeah, correct.
That's how the industry actually works.
Yep. And anyway, but by the time it made it to Reddit, the thread had become titled MSL, AZ, Yugi, Tensky, and Fessor are teaming up to create a new Danish super team. Now, if you go into the Reddit,
which word doesn't belong in that sentence? I know.
If you go into the Reddit thread, you will see a post from a Reddit user called "Very Ill"
written by fucking MSL's mom. Who the fuck's writing this? That's the most ludicrous title of all time, isn't it? I know.
You'll see a post from Very Ill Reddit users, who is one of the greatest shit posters on that subreddit.
Oh, is it a parody one?
Yeah, it seems to be an account that's used to reply to people that are displaying signs of mental illness. But anyway, it simply says, super team, this is more like Suicide Squad. Which, why?
That's pretty good.
Right. MSL, he broke away from Pimp when Pimp was still good.
Oh, yes, some of the, listen, considering it's an IGL.
Like him and Easy, mate.
By definition,
ride or die like I've never seen.
No, that's the thing. Mate, by definition, to be a good IGL, you've got to on some level have good decision making. But I agree, when it comes to actual like team decisions, this motherfucker, like he should actually do what they did on that episode of Seinfeld called The Opposite, where basically George is such a loser. He actually has the epiphany that he made all the wrong choices in life. So if he just does the opposite, it'll work out, and he does. Like, he starts doing the opposite and everything's going awesome. MSL, you should do that with your career, mate. Whichever angle you think. Which one should I pick? This one? Whatever the one you don't think. Because, mate, the counterfactual on your career is what your actual real career should have been, and it's sad.
Oh, this is wild as fuck, mate. So I don't know where to begin, because
mate, AZ has to be one of the greatest mesmerists of all time. It's mental, isn't it? Like, it's the loyalty he inspires. He's like Alexander the Great or something. It's mental. Like, how has he got this?
Yeah, so look, right, like I'll talk about the good first, right? And so I'll say I've seen a little bit of Fessor when he was in Hyenas, and he looked, you know, a player that belonged on that team, was a middle of the pack player on that roster, right? So, you know, he's young, got potential there. I think Tensky's one of the guys that a lot of people have forgot about in the Danish scene. I think Tensky actually is a legit player. He's been around a while. He's played in some of the better Danish teams down the years. Just never seems to get his plaudits, never seems to get his due. So I'm all right with Tensky being there. MSL, as I've said, won't be a first phase inductee, but is a future Hall of Famer IGL. No doubt about that. But, mate, Yugi, what is going on? Forget Easy, the fucking mesmerist, right? Yugi, right? This economy, the way this game works right now, your AWPer is so fucking important, right? And so you're going to bring back a player that was absolutely atrocious on the team he made his name on to a point where he got dropped, cast out, right? Kept coming back to be stand-ins. There was a stand-in for Astralis. Remember his Astralis debut?
It was terrible. Yeah.
It's one of the worst.
So recent device molded at me on Twitter because it was just such an embarrassing game. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, it's one of the worst. It's one of the worst performances. It's shocking. Like, go look it up. It's absolutely ridiculous. Then, right, somehow, I mean, apart from the fact that it was only because of Astralis in their fucking 10-man roster madness. Well, we got to make it look like it's real. Yugi, you will work for food, won't you? All right, mate. Yeah, just wants to say he played for Astralis, doesn't he? So, yeah, fair. He gets that chance. But then, when Complexity used him as a fucking stand-in,
I know.
Like it's like, how is this happening? How is it happening? And then, you know, I'll give him his credit. He weren't terrible in Complexity. He was a functional player. Well done. Then he quits and says, right, because he doesn't get any offers.
Didn't he go to Valorant or something? Am I wrong?
Yeah, he said he was off to Valorant, mate. He said he was off to Valorant. He said, that's that. I'm done. Thanks for everything. And it's like, good. Do that, mate. You should do that. You definitely should do that, right? Like, North, oh, God. I don't want to remember that whole project. And he was one of the worst parts about it. Like, this guy, like, come on, for fuck's sake. And once again, someone has deemed, it's like, he must be a super cool dude. He must be, like, the nicest guy, the funnest guy to hang out with. But he can't play this fucking game. And he just happens to play in the most important role. You can't do this, MSL. You cannot do this. I'll let you have Easy. Obviously, there's something going on there in terms of friendship and understanding, and you know what you've got a death pact with each other. That's fine. Like, whatever. Yugi cannot happen. This cannot be the team that you're gonna go with, because you get two names into it, and it's underwhelming as a motherfucker. And this is the team MSL himself has chosen. He said, after years in the wilderness, you know, doing DMT and looking into the future, this is the team I've come up with. Like, no, mate, come on. You're better than this. I'm stunned at this announcement. Stunned.
Oh, I think it's a shit show. I mean, it's terrible. Like, you look at the team, like, who the fuck wants to watch this team play? As you say, it's just another... This basically is just a North lineup, but just not playing for North. So guess what? The one upside of playing for North is, at least we get that fucking North money. You don't in this team, do you? Like, there's just fucking nothing. Like, what sucks about this team to me is this. Is, like, MSL is the one name that, like, obviously is a decent name, could be part of a good squad. And as you say, he's the one who had all the power in this team. So it's like, mate, if I'd get it if you were, like... You're the one who's desperate. There's nothing left in your career. Nobody wants to play with you, and you have to join these players. Right? That happens sometimes. You were the one who, like, had plenty more players that were better than this you could have worked with. Easy one, that's like a little bit, still all right. You know, he's still an okay player. The problem is, as you say, like, when do the good names come? Never. Those are the good names. And MSL and Easy are the big names. After then, you get Yugi, who, as you say, like, how he keeps getting teams, I don't know. I mean, I will say this. What I've always heard consistently throughout the years behind the scenes is people always say, basically, that he was someone who, like, sort of, they make it sound a bit like Config. Like, he had all the skills privately, but he, like, fucked his own life up with, like, life decisions or lack of motivation, or his head wasn't in the right space. Now, the problem I have with that is this. That all could be true. And what they're basically trying to tell you there, by the way, is like, but I'm the one who's going to convince him to get off the hooch and he's going to be good for me. Like, okay, that's not terrible. But the point is, like, look how many years it's been now. Like, it's not like it was 3 months. Like, you're talking about you're going to bring the guy. Because remember, the time when this guy was good was 2017. That was 4 years ago. 4 years. Remember, 4 years ago, fucking like the Brazilians were winning majors, etc. Like the world was a different world. Like you can't like that's too long ago. The idea that we're gonna there's a scene go, we got to give Yugi his 15th chance, but then go Kenny S and Guardian, they're not allowed to ever be bad. Fuck you, and get out the scene. Like give me a break, because I think this line's shit. Like his problem is what you've said. MSL should never have ever attempted to save face and be like, well, I'm choosing between offers and I've turned down an offer, because then you look like a dickhead when this is the offer you take at the end. Because as you say, it was set up as though like this is the best one he's had over the last 2 years. This is like one of the below average ones as far as I can tell from some of the shit I'd been hearing over the years. Like, I think that guy has zigged when he should have zagged so many times these last like 4 years at this point. Basically, once they kicked him the first time from North, the rest of his career has just been a wash. It's just waste of time.
I mean, at least you could say he was uncompromising, I guess. It would be that'd be a nice way of framing it, wouldn't it?
Accurate.
Yeah,
Yes.
but I mean, I'm with you, man. Like, I just think like he's such a good, like he's got such a great mind for the game, such a good IGL. Wasn't even playing particularly bad when his career kind of came off the rails and he got dropped, and you know, you end up playing with Yugi. I just don't. I just can't. Like, I'll never understand how this has happened. And the thing is, as well, especially in this economy, if I'm an org looking to pick up a team, I'm going right. Straight to relevance, I'm going to go because I've got MSL, he's got his boy Izzy there, and I remember Tensky being good. Sure, that was in Dignitas, so that's a while ago, but whatever. All right,
yeah,
you know, with the other...
No, MSL last had Tensky in his team in like 2015. That's 7 years ago, boys. And this is not a player, by the way, where like since then he's been, you know, it's like basically as far as I can tell about Tensky, he's done kind of like what MSL did in his career. You get to a point in your career, it's like to remain a pro, I have to just be like a shit support for whatever team's left. So everyone in the Danish scene, you notice they're mad cynical. They all instantly become supports and IGLs once they know they'll never get a career otherwise. So fair enough, he stuck around. But again, I can't imagine he was a top tier person you wanted on the roster. That's the guy you had in at the end, didn't it? That's like the fifth name you just
nobody, by the way, while you're talking about that, there was an example that was announced this week. I just wasn't even going to talk about it. But it was another. It was another move involving a Danish player, and it was Cajun B joining AGF, and he literally said in his statement, he said, "Yep, I'm going to be the IGL. It's something I've always wanted to do for, you know." So,
which just means, I'll translate that, I would still like to make salary from professional Counterstrike.
Yeah, I cannot I cannot justify being a player on the roster anymore because I am washed up. But I do know a bit or two about the game and might be able to deceive people into thinking I am the right person to lead a team, even though it's a very specific skill set. So, yeah, fantastic. Fantastic.
I'd also just love to go back in time and tell any of his teammates from about before 2017, Richard, like, oh, yeah, Cajun becomes an IGL later. Like,
I know. Yeah. Cajun B, yeah. I say Cajun, you say B. That one. Yeah, it's mental, mate. It's funny, actually. I would, you know, obviously there's loads of stuff I do with the time machine, but one of you guys can waste your go on the time machine with this. Like, it would be funny to basically show like all these Danish legends. Yeah, this is where you end up. Let's be like, no. It's like it is. It would horrify them. Like, enough's enough, guys. Come on. Right. Anyway, fuck it. I'm just gonna go straight into viewer questions at this point. Said it'd be short. So first question. First viewer question for those who don't know, if you're new to the show, people who pay us $50 get to ask us any question about anything. We will answer it as long as it takes. So BP420 says, which in real life sport, I love it, our audience are so contemptuous of esports as well, just like us, which in real life sport do you think would benefit the most from adopting a core streaming model?
Ooh, that's actually a good question. Ooh, let me think. The problem is the most obvious one, I feel like. I think there's two that seem really obvious, and I'm not claiming to be a genius. Like, when I tell you them, they essentially both sort of low-key done this to try. I think they would work. The obvious ones to me would be the UFC and the NFL, because in the UFC, think about how many different specialists you could bring together. Like, if you had a fight that was like Habib versus some superstar. You could bring in like also like an expert in wrestling, so you could, they're just the sort of specialist skill set you could bring in that wouldn't be appropriate for the UFC broadcast. And the NFL one's obvious because I said it when it first happened. When everyone kept sucking Tony Romo's dick because he made all those great reads, I was like, this just shows you guys don't know actually how fucking like much preparation real quarterbacks put in. Like it goes without saying, if big retired quarterbacks who can talk did like a core stream like that where they just broke down what they thought like for real about the game, mate, that would be incredible. Who wouldn't watch that?
Well, I mean, that was one of my pet peeves. Like everyone was going, "Wow, Tony Romo is such a good actor." It's like, do you know how much a quarterback has to hold in his fucking brain?
Exactly.
Like, how can anyone who knows anything about the sport assume that a tenured quarterback wouldn't know what the fuck he was talking about? If he didn't know what the fuck he was talking about and couldn't read the game, you wouldn't know who he was, let alone he wouldn't be a pundit for sure. So yeah, that was stupid. And by the way, one of those things as well. Diminishing returns on that, wasn't there?
Oh, of course.
Diminishing returns. Like
that's
everything.
Basically the equivalent of when those idiots on Reddit just pick a new person and go, he's the new tier 1, and then the same arsehole themselves a year later. It's like, I'm bored with him now. It's like, what sort of plaything are we to you? Are you fucking that guy from Toy Story or something like that?
Yeah, exactly.
What's this?
No, that's literally how it works.
You've just got to a thing in the back somewhere going, please, man, listen, man, just free me and I won't tell anyone. Like,
yeah, no, it's bad, mate.
I like the way, dude, by the way, there's something we have to just quickly address. Before I always used to make fun of Anders because I was like, you can always tell when he's high by the way the tweet's always at like 1:58 a.m. like his time, and then it's always like, what do you think about simulation? It's like they're even like, dude, now it's gotten so you can't even tell when he's high posting because now all his tweets are just like, a shit Elon Musk like, someone should invent this, like not him by the way, but someone else should invent this mad thing, like, oh, all right. Go ahead. Like what? What is this Twitter account at this point? What is it?
I'm lucky enough. I get those messages just in my personal life. I don't even have to read his Twitter account.
With no irony, because this just shows you the best of Anders Bloom and the worst. Like the pure naivety, the real belief, Richard, that the optimism, the belief that everyone can improve and make the scene better, but also the stupid, childish naivety to still live in such a fucking a basic primary coloured world where there's all this nuance and shit. It's when he made a tweet where no joke, Richard. This was the gist of it. He genuinely did a tweet that was like, I think it'd be great if HLTV.org had a section where they posted other people's content like Thorin's and like, and I just remember replying like, are you out your motherfucking mind? Like, what are you talking about? That is listen, yes, I agree, Anders, in the most absolute sense. That's a great idea. It's also by definition the least likely idea to ever be implemented in this industry. That is a mad idea to have.
Oh yeah, totally.
It's a great idea. It just would never ever happen under any circumstances.
Well, I remember when we used to do on Cadred. One of the rules I had was like, if you see an outstanding piece of content that's going to further a narrative or break a story or might be of interest to your readership, it's totally valid from an editorial perspective. To report on its existence. And so we used to do it all the time. HLTV have interviewed this player. You might want to go see it. On other websites. And in the end, what that was perceived to be by moron esports fans, because they were dumb back then too, was, oh, look, it's a tacit admission that their content's better. It was like, it's like we're just telling you. So in the end, we just sort of phased that out. We just see maybe all the comments were the same, or from people, because Cadre and HLTV had that stupid rivalry, even though we were fundamentally two different.
Oh, I'm sure they were like, all you do is repost down. It was that people don't know what uncharitable assholes those people are as well.
Yeah. So, but anyway, I think the best one for me is definitely MMA, and the reason I say that is all the other sports have a high level of technicality to them, where ultimately the best core streams, in my opinion, I'm sure, like you make an argument if you watch a football game or whatever, like some of those like Arsenal TV fan streams are fucking hilarious. Like, just watching a cunt lose their mind because their favorite team is getting battered or whatever. So that's hilarious. But I think that the best sports streams would be like with a legendary ex-player watching the game and throwing out some anecdotes in the downtime and giving you some insight into the game, and I could see that being really good. But what I will say is with MMA, what you've got is it's so visceral. It's such a visceral sport. And while there is so much technicality that goes into it, and you have to know your, different moves and all of that, sometimes it's just about punching someone in the face as hard as you can. And when that moment happens, when someone's fist explodes into someone's face and their eyes roll up in their head and they're gone, and it's a knockout punch and the fight's going to be over, and it's come from like some weird angle, nobody knows what's going on, and just that, because we're still just, with primates with really big foreheads and fucking Starbucks reward cards. We're nothing special, right? When that moment happens and you get that excitement, I think anybody, you don't even have to know anything about the sport on a technical level. You can make that fun. You can make that exciting. It's one of the reasons why UFC's had such explosive growth and kind of like mainstreamed what MMA is, because in the absence of boxing matches being worth watching anymore, you have this really visceral sport that anyone can relate to. Most people will go through their life having either the threat of violence upon them at some point, or maybe even engaging in violence. It's still something we haven't removed from the human condition. And as a result, we can all like watch violence in a safe environment and sort of relate to it in some like weird fucked up level. And so as a result, I think it's the thing that speaks to people the most. And it's the thing that even as an amateur you can watch and kind of share, because it transcends a high skilled sport. It's something that is there throughout human history in everyday life. So yeah, I think on a real philosophical level, MMA has something no other sport does. So Chingu, what are some of the spiciest potential roster moves that never happened?
Let me think. I mean, the obvious ones, like some of the famous ones, like Simple to fucking MIBR was a pretty mad one. Simple and Flamey to MIBR, that one's pretty nuts. I guess I think technically it was SK at the time. Would have been SK, but there's one, obviously. I mean, that would really that would either be amazing or the worst move ever. Goes without saying. But it would have had amazing drama, I imagine. Similarly, I mean, there's also similar ones along the same lines, like supposedly Nico and fucking Cold Zero wanted to join Team Liquid at some point in time and like team up there before they could do it in FaZe Clan. So what people don't know is there have been some enormous sort of like earth-shaking moves that weren't even that far from happening. They just didn't happen in the end,
Yeah, I mean, like for me, you probably got to say the Simple Flamey MIBR move. It has to be that, because what does that do in terms of the seismic shift to the whole of CSGO history? But not only
no one even thought about, dude. Think about how insane the viewership would be on those games.
Yeah.
Holy shit!
You've combined CIS and
Ukrainian,
Brazil. Yeah.
One of them Simple as well, and it's fallen them. Dude,
yeah.
they would like break all the records, wouldn't they?
Yeah. Well, yeah, they would unquestionably have been the most popular team in the world. And what's brilliant about that is that it would have created an unbelievable type of pressure. And
enormous,
with personalities we all know are volatile as fuck. Right? And so I think the mimetic, the memes that would have come out of that, the content, the discussions, the topics, the argument,
move, innit? Yeah.
Oh, it would have been so fucking good. So yeah, I'm always devastated that didn't happen. Because it would have been interesting to, shut up, all have it simple.
The problem is it's not even that we're saying it would work in the service. As you say, though, there's a part of you where, listen, it's not my fucking money. I just want to see it happen. If someone's good, it's like when they make those freak fights in MMA, Rich. It's like, look, I would never, in good conscience, put one of these matches on. But if you're going to do it, fuck it, I'll watch. What channel's it on,
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I'm with you, exactly. So it's like, that's what's great about that. I also think, there's probably been a few moments, hasn't there, when Nico's nearly had some insane moves. He's come close on a few times, especially during that whole Nico Sports era. But yeah, I don't think anything's going to beat that. The potential for Simple and Flamey to come in to the Brazilian team would have been out of this world. And as you say, the level of support it would have had, but also a fan base divided, right? Two fan bases that don't naturally get along with each other. And, I've seen it before. For example, when MIBR got the American players and had Stewie and Tarek in there, the Brazilian players were like, they don't have pride in the flag. They're not Brazilian. They don't.
Okay. What the fuck?
So when MIBR were underperforming, I'm not saying it was all fans, but there was a significant subset. So was Stewie or Tarek could tell you about this if you ask them, where they were being criticised because they were Americans and therefore they weren't playing hard enough because they don't care. They don't know what it is to be a proud Brazilian. You don't know that. So you're out there representing MIBR, but you're not made in Brazil. And therefore, you know, they got a lot of criticism based on that. So, I mean, imagine what happens when, you know, it's simple this time. And and maybe he has a bad game and the Brazilian fans get on his back. I'll tell you, them Russian fans can fucking meet crazy. You know, they can match it as much as any fan base out there. So yeah, it would have been amazing. I think you've got to say that one for sure. Reykjavik on Steam says, at what point does a curry stop being enjoyable because it's too spicy?
Actually, the problem is, if anything, that's like not really a question you can answer. That's half the problem, isn't it? Because as he's astutely pointed out there with the implication, it is almost like it doesn't just have a hard barrier. It sort of like fades into that. And the problem is, depending on how you feel, I feel like it's a day-to-day thing as well, Richard. Like some days you, as mad as it sounds, some days you want it to be too hot. You almost want to sort of reset, as it were. Whereas other days you want it to just taste nice and only be a bit hot, don't you? I'll also say as well, the part that like, this is why you always have to be aware that we have a lot more of like, obviously a heritage of eating curry in Britain than certain other countries in Europe. Yeah. Like, for example, I've made this point before. If you go to Germany, it's a fucking joke what they think a fucking curry is, mate. There'll barely be any, there's no spice in it. So what I'll say is this as well. If you know anything about eating curry, the famous thing about eating curry is it's no problem. If you're having problems with the heat while you're eating it, you're not even on level 1. You shouldn't even be in this conversation. The heat part comes out your arsehole the next day. So the problem with it is, as anyone who's ever made bad decisions, drinking loads, the worst ones are the ones where you get the bad effect, you know, a delayed amount of hours later. At least, listen, say what you want about cocaine. About half an hour in, you start going, I'm going to need more of this cocaine on this night because it's going to get real bad. The fucking curry or the beer one, like, you'd only find out 10 hours later, like, fuck, why'd I do that? Like, and I tell you what, it's way too late with the curry one. There's no other way it can come out your body. It has to come out.
Yeah, so for me, like, it's kind of interesting because, like, it sort of shows how kind of, like, low-class British people are in general, in that we have essentially distilled all of Indian cuisine down to the heat. You know, we stick a korma and a pasanda at one end, right? And we don't even really discern the difference between them. We stick a vindaloo and a fal, a naga fal at the top, and we go, right, that's your scale of Indian cuisine. We don't talk about the regionality like we should, you know, like different ones from, like, you know, obviously Goan curry is very different to curry you'd get in Delhi.
Or Birmingham.
Yeah, obviously the Birmingham Balti, which is a unique dish that was created here in Birmingham. And we don't really, so we don't talk about regionality. We also don't talk about, like, the sourness. You know, when you talk about a lot of, like, Asian cuisine, like, for example, when you talk about Thai, you know, everyone knows the disparate parts of what makes a Thai tasting dish and the sort of ingredients that are natural to that. And, you know, you have the word umami, which is to describe that new flavor that came out of Japan, which is like the additional one to go with, you know, hot and sour and salty and all that. We don't do that in Britain. We just go, is it hot? And yeah, like you say, sometimes I agree. There's some days I want a curry to hurt me. I want it to fucking hurt me. I want to sweat. I want to have my sinuses cleaned out. I want to. Yeah, exactly. Like it does something in you, and they've actually said this. There's certain spices they put in the hot curries as well that do have health properties of some sort, and you can look at the efficacy of that. But you know, generally, it's a good feeling to just have a hot dish. It sort of cleans you out, and you do get a reaction to it. You almost get a euphoria at the end. You know?
Like, by the way, I definitely would not claim that I have any medical knowledge on this, but I personally used to find it wasn't always curry. I did this. I used to actually do it with noodles, where I would go to this place that did like really spicy noodles with all peppers in them. You're right. I found, Richard, if I ever had like the beginnings of a mild cold, I used to just go and have one of those, and I would purposely pick the hot one. Yeah. And exactly like you're saying, I would feel like, listen, it'd wreck me when I was eating it, but I would feel afterwards like, fuck, I feel like it's all gone now. I'm sort of pushing out the system. You know,
any of the Finnish guys in the chat, which of course we know we've got millions of them, right? Like, you know, they'll tell you sometimes when you start coming down with the cold, if you go and have a sauna because you've got that streaming, and it makes you feel better. Obviously, it's not getting rid of what's happening in your body.
Oh.
The symptoms are still going to be there, but because of what you've done to the orifices, the symptoms are going to affect. You feel better for it, and it's the same with hangovers. And again, there's no efficacy to it. But if I had £1 for everyone who told me that they've had a sauna when they've been really hungover and it's helped the hangover last shorter because they've sweated it out, there's no science to back that up at all, by the way. But on an anecdotal level, people feel better for it. So a sauna must do something. It's just not a scientific thing. Even if it's just a mental thing, even if it's a placebo. If a placebo makes you feel better, yay, placebo. Who gives a fuck?
You get that vibe from curry sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, totally. And so for me, I've never when a curry is too spicy, it's those stupid challenge curries, which are a disgrace to all of Indian cuisine and Indian chefs for hundreds of years.
They make in the UK basically.
So I'll give you an example, because I did one when I was young and thought I was hard or whatever, So I went up to a big market in Newcastle. I used to live in Newcastle, but this is when I was in Borough, so I had to travel up. And they have in Big Market, I don't know if it's still there, but they have something called the Rupali restaurant. And it was famous for having the hottest curry in the world, called Curry Hell. It was so hot, if you could eat it all, free, and you get a T-shirt.
Which, by the way, if they're in Newcastle, that means that you just die if you eat it. Like, there's no way they're giving away free shit. Like, there's no way.
Yeah, exactly, right? So anyway, on my
the story's going.
On my which birthday was it? It might be my 18th. I don't even know. I can't remember. It was a birthday. My mates took me up there and said, right, we'll buy you a meal, and where do you want to go? And I said, well, I'll tell you what we'll do for the banter. We'll go to the Rupali and we'll have that fucking curry hell, right? Went in, ordered it, and mate, the waiter brought it out. I could smell it coming, mate. I could fucking, like Phil Collins, I could smell it coming in the air tonight, right? It was fucking, the heat coming off it. And immediately all the other diners, hey, you know what it's like, right? Hey, some dickheads can have the hot curry. And they're all looking and watching you like it's on a big scene, big palaver, right? They fucking come down, they drop it down. And
I bet when they were doing that, when like sort of the whispers, I bet you did have a vibe almost like you were like a boxer coming out. Like,
I was a daft cunt, obviously. And I was
vibing as like a motherfucker. Come on.
I was like, hey, watch this, boys. Like, so anyway, immediately I could tell just by smelling it, and it's just brown slop with just heat in it. That's all it is. It's just brown slop. There's no artistry or balancing of flavors. This is why I hate the challenge curries. Like Man versus Food does a lot of these. They're an insult to the craft. It's basically like you just take ghost chilies and naga chilies and the standard brown base of the curry sauce. It's just the base sauce. It's got nothing else in it. It's just the base sauce they use in restaurants, and you just overload it with stuff that literally it's the same as eating like a can of fucking mace. Like it's pepper spray. It's hotter than pepper spray. It does worse things to you than pepper spray, and you're putting it inside your body. So you can imagine, can't you? So this is how you know it's really bad. Before I'd even had the first taste, I started hiccuping. I had the reflex going just off the smell of the spice. Okay. And so I've gone in, and the only way to eat a dish like this is you have to attack it. You have to attack it.
Keep going.
If you take a break, you've lost. And so I've fucking nailed this, like a fucking dog eating hot chips. I'm like eyes pissing, like they've sealed shut, like I'm having probably like the start of anaphylaxis. Like people are looking at me going, Richie, you all right? Red-faced British moron, supping down gassy lager while I'm hiccuping, trying not to vomit on myself because this stuff's so fucking outrageous. Like a meal where you're trying not to vomit at the table is not a good fucking time, right? Anyway, so I've got it down me, and the guys come out and like, oh, well done, sir. I think he was called Lord Harteef of Lord Ali Harteef of Harpole or something. I don't know. But anyway, the owner, you get a T-shirt, and I'm just there, mate. I'm like, right. I had, long story short, I've got it. I still had the T-shirt.
It ruined you all night though, didn't it?
I went home, mate. I said, I can't. Right. No, but the story doesn't end there. Like, so I fucked up my own birthday by eating this. My stomach was in agony right? I can't stop hiccuping. I fucking stink because whatever is in that, so it's sweating, it's coming out of my pores already. So even if I'd gone to fucking Blue Bamboo or something, now then, lass, you want to fucking, have you been necking turds? I wouldn't have pulled, like, I'm fucked, aren't I? So I've just gone home, right? And then the like you said, mate, the next day was the problem. My God. You cannot. I'm not ashamed to say I literally cried.
Oh, but you were just like negotiating with God and everything. Like, let me get away with it this one time, please.
Mate, no, it was. I was shitting white hot razor blades. Is the only way I can describe it, mate. And the problem was my bowel had gone into like a spasm just because of the fucking. Yeah, well, yeah. It was like, what's this nonsense? So, do you know when you vomit, you get the cramps and you just can't stop it coming out. Yeah. Now imagine your arsehole doing that. Imagine vomiting, the reflex for vomiting out your arse. That's what was happening. And it was hot and spicy.
Right now, I know.
I know. People ask, like, you ask the questions, you get the story.
Well, just imagine them up in the streets. Like, imagine the reflex when you're being sitting, that's your arsehole. Just...
yeah, I know, right? So anyway, apparently he's dead now, the owner. Sad. He got me before he went, I'll tell you that. But anyway, so mate, Alex, I'm crying. I'm crying out, and I was like, I'm like, oh God, no! Like full screaming. People are asking if I'm all right. All my mates are asking, are you all right in there, mate? I'm like, oh no. Like it's one of those where you want to put the toilet roll in the fridge, mate. It was so bad, bleeding out my ass. Oh, it was never again. So if you want to know when it's too hot, when it does that to you, when you have eaten the equivalent of chemical fucking warfare, but up until that point, it's all right. So there you go. There's another Tales from Richard's arsehole, another classic story.
I tell you what, he'd eat 2 of those curries before he ever played Counterstrike with fucking Yogi.
Actually true. Anyway, Orky, since players are so spineless when it comes to their teammates being cut, you both have been employed in a new unique role of letting players go for orgs when the time comes. Can we get an example of your approach for both a player and your super like a player you super like and a sad to see go, and a deadweight player that should have been cut years ago? Hyperbole and ridiculousness are encouraged.
If you remember that movie called like Up in the Air with George Clooney.
George Clooney, I'm just thinking that.
Yeah. It's basically the premise of that movie, right? We get brought in just to fire him. So the problem with this is, like, obviously he wants us to do one where it's like you're letting a legend down. Like, look, it's your time's come, you know. The problem with that is, I can't lie. If I did that job, I mean, it's literally, this is where I'm different to other people, right? Is if I already do that job, it's like being a tax collector back in fucking Jesus's day. Everyone hates you anyway, mate. You might as well just lean into it. It's no point going, oh, I'm sorry about that. I'd just go, give me this fucking tax now. I'm not coming back here next week. I'd just be harsh as fuck. Look, you've got to be good at your job. So in this scenario, I'd just rock up there and go, all right, Stanislaw. Yeah, fucking feeling burned out, are you? Well, you're going to have loads of fucking time off now, aren't you, dickhead? You're fired. That's right, you're out. Get the fuck out. I'd do it I'd do it a mix between how fucking Alec Baldwin was in Glengarry Glen Ross when he came
You've got to be like him. He's the guy I immediately thought of.
A mixture of that and when Ari Gold out of Entourage would like fire people where he was like, get the fuck out. I'd do all that shit. I'd chew the scenery up, mate. I will say it'd be really hurtful for people who've been there a long time, as you say, legendary players, but I'm brought there to kill them, aren't I? So, well, fire him, you know what I mean, metaphorically.
Yeah. I mean, for me, like, so, I think the best way to do it in a nice way, obviously you'll have seen Moneyball.
Yes.
Right? When he just sits them down and he just says, you've been traded. Here's the card. Go talk to, Marie. She'll help you get moved. And thanks for all your service. And that's that. And it's just very cold and clinical. Because there is no point. Firing's like a breakup. Like, it's done.
You don't want to pussyfoot around it, do you? That's the problem.
Yeah,
people think that. By the way, this is basically what happened in League of Legends that I think we referred to a few months back.
Yeah.
Basically, when the guy, he thought he was being a nice guy, came out and publicly told him, look, you might all be fired next week or whatever. Like, that's how far American culture has gone to, like, treat people like children when they're adults. Like, if you're just being fired because you're not good at your job, it's fine for them to just say, look, sorry, you're fired. Like, I had to fire you,
I mean, I've had to fire people, you know, and yeah, I mean, like, put it this way, right? As long as you can demonstrate that you did everything you could in it, you know, and this is a legal requirement in Europe. You know, one of the things you have to do is you have to say, right, is it a competence or a behavioural issue? If it's behaviour, you have to warn them, unless it's something really heinous. You know, you can't fire them straight away. So you got to let them know that behaviour is not acceptable here. We won't tolerate it as a disciplinary penalty. And if it's a competency issue, you have to train them up. You have to at least try and teach them how to do the job. And then if they don't, yeah. I mean, so I've had to let people go. I've had to take people in the room, and this is, you know. This is Shirley from HR, and we're just letting you know that, you know, as of today, we're going to terminate your contract with immediate effect. And yeah, you just have to sort of be like, it's like you say, it's something you just have to do directly. The problem with people is when we get into a position where we feel we're being rejected, right, for who we are essentially. And we do this with a few things, relationships, because obviously there's no dressing it up. If someone breaks up with you, you are being rejected for who you are, no matter what they say, right? But with a job, because we're so fucked up as a species and we attach all the importance to what we do, I'm guilty of that as well. Like, all of my dumbest arguments all come when I feel people are undermining, you know, my journalistic integrity or whatever. So, you know, I understand it, but there's people start bargaining. That's the problem with it. People start, oh, look, I can change. I can do. We're at the point where you should have changed if you could have changed. So I can't believe it. But it's hard. It's hard to watch people like beg and squirm. So the nice way to do it is the way that I said. Oh, mate, Glengarry Glen Ross is the ultimate mate. Because he doesn't just fire them. He emasculates them first. You know, he says, like, you see this watch? Costs more than your car. There's no need to throw that in there, but it's just a gut punch.
Dude, my favourite line of all, because it's so money, is the line he gives. And it's what I think every time, Richard, some dumbass pro player tells us, like, but he's a great guy. I'm friends with him. You know, when he goes, nice guy. Fuck you. Go home to your family. Like,
yeah, exactly.
This is so brutal, isn't it? Because his point is, what relevance does that have to do with the job? Yeah, exactly.
So there you go.
That's so mean, isn't it? I know. By the way, if no one's ever seen this scene, it's just on YouTube on its own. It's called something like, you know, like best scene ever. Just look up like Alec Baldwin.
Alec Baldwin, Glengarry Glen Ross. Basically, it's a story about some salespeople and they're not hitting their targets.
One of the best cameos ever, for sure.
Yeah, and so it was originally based on a play, and so they bring in this guy who's a super successful salesperson to motivate them. And mate, he's in the movie for this one scene and steals the movie.
He's a legend,
and it's a movie with Kevin Spacey.
One of the best casts ever.
Pre shenanigans.
Everything.
Yeah, probably not even, actually, if you think about it, but whatever. Jack Lemmon, Al Pacino. The cast is insane. And it turns out that meme about Alec Baldwin being the best actor of all time from Team America World Police, he fucking steals this movie with one scene.
He owns
it's mad. Yeah, so go check it out. Carve, it's here. Is Daps return to CSGO the greatest esports comeback story since do the joke, since Richard's hair started miraculously growing back during the lockdown? The man's out here straight quiffing. I'm glad you said quiffing and not queefing.
Where was that going?
Straight queefing. I know people don't really understand my hair. I didn't have hair plugs. I know that's a rumor that's going around. Thorin can verify this. I haven't done a Wayne Rooney. I think about it all the time. I've always thought, like, if it gets to a stage, I might just do it for the banter. Not because I care about the hair, but just having a full, thick, luscious head of hair. It must be, like, so terrible. You know, like, going up to Moses, I beat the system. You know what I mean? Things like that. Like, it's for my own sick personal enjoyment. But the thing is, like, and I'm obviously never going to show you this, at the back, I am just a fat. Even Zidane would go, mate, you're taking the piss. Like, he would. It's like, you know, it's basically, as long as I sweep it back and layer it, I can get away with it. But it is basically like I look like a professor or a monk or something from the
old school monk with the little circle.
Yeah. Which, by the way, people in the world do that all the time.
That's true.
You know, they just go out there and it's like, yeah, I'm bald at the back. I can't see it, so I don't give a shit. And people do it. I used to know this guy. I won't say his full name, but his first name was Alan, right? And you know the footballer Alessandro Nesta?
Oh, of course, yeah.
Right. So we knew this guy, Alan, who I worked with, right? And he was one of these dickheads who he had that tiny tuft of hair. He just kept the tuft. And he had a full head of hair around the sides, but it was all skin and just this tuft at the front. And when we used to play football, we used to call him Alessandro Nesthead because his head looked like a fucking bird's nest. It was that bad. Silly cunt. Alessandro Nesthead, yeah. Along with Fabio Brokenback. Our five-side team is stuff for legends. But anyway, people do it and they just think it's acceptable. And it's like, it's not. Stop it. Shave it off. So anyway, thanks for that, Carv. Bacon, can you give a shout out to my wife, Maya? We got married this Friday. Well, I certainly can, Bacon. Shout out to Maya. Thanks for supporting your now husband so he can give us money. We appreciate that very much. Please keep giving him the money so he can give us the money. We love you too. So there you go.
Basically,
Echo.
if you ever plan on divorcing him, at least don't take the fucking BTN Patreon money. You have a heart.
Keep that on. Keep that on. It's like you can keep the Netflix account and the BTN Patreon.
Exactly.
Yeah. But congrats, mate. Echo. Which dinosaur?
Come on.
Which dinosaur was the best?
Easy answer on that one, isn't it? I know the answer for that one. It's easy. It's one of those like.
An answer.
The answer is Komodo dragon, still around.
Ooh. See what you've done.
There you go.
Yeah.
He wins. Last one standing wins. Everyone
what about
knows
alligators,
that.
though? Have alligators been around longer?
As everyone who was in my peer group in 2001 of Esports Journalism knows, the only one at the end is the winner, isn't he? It doesn't matter if he was the best or not. He's the only one still going. So that's all.
I can't believe that. Mate, I'm so dumb. I was trying to bring up a list of dinosaurs, right? And I've just typed the word dinosaurs into Google. Like, what's that? That's not helping, isn't it? At least put some qualifying stuff.
I mean, Barney's going to be the fucking front page. So
I know, mate, it's a mess. It is a mess. Here you go. So there are 700 species apparently of dinosaurs. Okay, most popular dinosaurs.
I mean, the obvious one: Tyrannosaurus Rex, Stegosaurus. You got your Velociraptor.
Yeah, the thing, mate. This is going to sound mad, right? But do you remember when Velociraptors weren't a thing?
Oh, before the movie Jurassic Park, I never heard of one, mate. Everyone now is the number one fucking one, of course, because all the movies were obsessed with, wasn't it? But yeah, that just came from the movies, I'm pretty sure.
So I had a board game when I was a kid called Escape from the Lost Valley of the Dinosaurs.
Oh, right? It's a classic game,
Yeah, with the volcano chips that chase you and
badass,
and it's got the sea monster. Well, yeah, it was one of those classic board games you played as a kid.
Fantasy one, I remember,
Yeah. And anyway, I remember that one blowing my mind because the dinosaurs that we knew about, you had your Triceratops, right? You had your Diplodocus, you had your Tyrannosaurus Rex, you had your Pterodactyl, that was the flying one.
These are all the classics.
And this board game had a flying dinosaur, a green one, with a like little peg for a head so it could pick you up and fly you to its nest if you rolled a 1. And it wasn't a pterodactyl, it was a pteranodon. I remember this distinctly, and it blew my mind.
You got no evidence.
I'm not a pteranodon. I'm not a pterodactyl.
That's a reference and a half.
Yeah, well done.
Contextual reference into the fucking Richard Lewis.
I know, it's mad. But yeah, so it blew my mind that there was even like non-popular species of dinosaurs. No one had ever talked about velociraptors in the 80s. Like no one. You just didn't know what they were. You never heard about them, and then Jurassic Park came along, and now everyone... Velociraptors are the most gassed-up dinosaur of all time. I bet they weren't even as dangerous as they make out. Like, I know, obviously, Jurassic Park, clever girl, when it, like, opens the door and all that shit or whatever. Like, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, like, I don't even reckon they could take... People say that about piranhas, mate. They said about piranhas. Piranhas don't do that, you know.
They don't just swarm you, apparently.
No! Mate, they don't even, like, you've seen the movie Piranha, right? And the guy goes in the water and he's turned to bones in seconds,
instantly,
right?
They strip you down.
Nah, it's nonsense. They don't even do it. They don't even want, they don't even bite you.
That's just disappointing somehow, isn't it?
If they do, it hurts. Yeah, velociraptors and piranhas are just all. It's like you've just got all that mate who goes, "Oh, he's hard. He he never fights, but he's hard. You don't want to mess with him." And it's some 5'2" manlet. It's dust over there in the corner, right? It's like, oh, he's hard as fuck. Don't fuck with him. Like, no, it's fucking. They're not. They're soft as shit. So anyway, I don't know where I'm going with this.
Which one is the best for you then?
Brontosauruses, pretty big.
That's a pretty classic one. Can't go
Another
wrong with
classic.
That.
Like
that's basically the one, if people remember, where it was like when he first looked out on the Jeep and it was like, no, 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 no. His whole life wasn't a waste. No, 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 no. Like when they were looking at the majesty of that one, it was the Brontosaurus one. Yeah, class.
So yeah, no, like Brontosauruses, as far as I could tell, like even though I think they were herbivores, they might have been omnivores.
Yeah,
I imagine
sure they
dinosaurs.
were vegetables.
Yeah, I imagine dinosaurs would eat anything really, but it wasn't a predator in that sense. They were just chill, but they were big dudes, so no one fucked with them. So yeah, there you go. They were living their best life. Like not even a T-Rex is taking on a Brontosaurus. Like
true.
They just can't be asked. It's just easier targets, isn't there?
That was one of the cool things actually about dinosaurs is that they could be really big figures who had all this power without being predators, unlike Activision Blizzard Management Group, allegedly.
In a video game.
In a video
right.
game. Yeah, of course they go.
We'll wrap it up. Me and Sam are going to get to the timestamps.
I normally think a lot of parody stuff's played out and not very well done, but I agree with the one you retweeted the other day, the hard drive mag one.
Oh, it really were. Really were.
It was about Andrew Cuomo accepting a leadership position at Activision Blizzard. Like, whoever wrote that fucking... The headline alone is just a 10 out of 10, innit? I know.
It's so fucking mental, man.
That made me chuckle for sure.
No, you don't even understand, though. The world is so mental. That's like not even necessarily satire at some point. That could happen, mate. You could see that in your lifetime. No joke. No joke. You don't, or riot, maybe. Who knows?
No.
Anyway, whatever. Right. That's the show. You paid for it. No refunds, dickheads. Right. Thanks to the sponsor, NordVPN. Go to nordvpn.com/RLS. Go and get yourself 74% off, 4 months free. Great deal, great product. And of course, shout out to our patrons. Our $100 patron, the legend Jerky's Minion, conspicuously absent with a question this time. Hope you're all right, mate. Chris, Will the Weed Wrangler, Cathal, J-Dubs, Tobias Bernasconi, Carve, Benakagi, and Marcus Kiyunpa, and our $50 patrons, Ortarian, Frankie, J-Ray, Zumba, Petty Grievances, Tim Frost, Bukowski, Dancer Master, Adam Ox, Nolan, Judas, Can of Pasito, Airhammer, Norwegian Clamai, Bacon, Goody Woody, Sarathenia, Gern Kaya, Lonnie, Fursock, Daniel Magnuson, Echo, Rez, Miss Alcoholic, BP420, Watch Doge, Reykjavik on Sting, Carter, CMAC 1991, Alex C, and Sad Sawar. That was by the numbers. We'll be back probably talking about things related to Counterstrike. Pro League starts next week. So, yeah, see you then. Till then, take care of yourself.